Where are these guys? We're supposed to like start a few minutes ago. Wait.
Hey, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, hello.
Hey, I'm Medic Chamberlain, joined by Andrew Vedius. It's Medic
Yes, it is. Let's go. Ender's here as well. Woohoo! Origin versus G2. It's great to have you here, buddy. It's great to have you.
Thanks. I feel very included right now and ready to cast this series.
It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a great one. Winner goes to the finals in Rotterdam. The loser, of course, plays up against Fnatic in our semi-final match on the Saturday. It's going to be a great series. A lot of people predicting it's going to go all the way.
I certainly am. Coming into this series, it's so hard to know what to expect from these teams. With 3 weeks since we've last seen them here on the LEC stage, you have to believe that both of these teams have taken that time to come in and prepare. And I'm already looking at this first draft as the one to define the series. What styles are we going to be seeing, and what form will these teams be in?
Very much so, Ender. And some of the big picks that I have my eyes on are things like the Rise. I wonder how high priority that will be. We know how talented G2 is with their ability to flex it across 3 different roles. We saw Wonder's performance against Fnatic in the final week of the LEC. It must be a very potent pick, along with things like the Sylas and maybe even a Morgana coming into today.
Yeah, the Karthus also I have to keep my eye on whenever Jankos is in the game, but interestingly enough, it's G2 that banned that away on the blue side. Cold also picked that up a few times during this series, so we're going to be moving away from the scaling jungle picks once that is taken off the board, and are much more likely to see something like the Rek'Sai for Cold, or maybe the Olaf or Elise for Jankos.
Now, we are seeing the Kayle ban come through as well. Unsurprisingly, you direct it towards G2. You would assume that it would be somewhere in the high priority list, but also the Morgana that we briefly talked about already being taken off the board from G2, and it makes me wonder what will be their priority. Things like Lucian, Cassio, Jace are all currently still up and available, and something they want to try and grab their hands on early.
And we know that picks like LeBlanc can struggle into the Morgana, or even the Syndra as well, these champions that want to take over in the mid lane that you love to see caps on. So it doesn't really surprise me to see G2 take that off the board. What I am really just curious about is what do they value after these 3 weeks, and it's almost impossible to know.
That's always the question when you get round to this first pick. G2 electing blue side, wanted to have this first pick for themselves. It will be the Rek'Sai going over to Jankos. He's played that twice throughout the split, is 1 and 1 on it.
Yeah, focus on early game here for G2. Look to dominate early on through the top side of their map, and specifically get caps in a winning matchup. If you can have a strong mid-jungle 2v2 with the Rek'Sai, playing the rest of the game becomes a piece of cake.
And Origin already going for heavy dive with the Jarvan and Galio combo. Remember that this Galio can be flexed between both mid and bot. We expect it to be in the support position, but with the Jarvan, you have that added flexibility as well between top and jungle. So Origin kind of flexing on G2 right now, considering how well known G2 are for that flexibility.
And there is the Rise that you talked about, Vedius. Already getting locked in here by G2 on that second rotation. Still a flexible pick. Kalista is the final lock on this first rotation from G2.
So now if I'm looking at G2, I really need Mickey X to be on something that it can engage in the bottom lane. So Origin should be looking to ban away picks like the Alistar or the Rakan once they lock their next choice in, because ultimately what G2 are going to be missing with the start of this composition is that engage, especially if they want to put Rise in the top lane for Wonder.
Where are you looking for your pick here if you're Origin, though? You said you have a lot of dive coming out. Do you just want a safe AD carry?
Well,
that's what they want.
Yeah, that's what they want. They're going for more of the scaling option right now. Origin very much directed towards more of the team fight. Excuse me, something that we look at during the regular season for Origin was that they kind of played a variety of different styles. Sometimes they would play team fight, sometimes they play 1-3-1, sometimes they play 4-1. They have a very deep strategy pool, and it feels like that for game 1, they're very much around, you know what, maybe the enemy team's going to play safe, maybe it'll be a little bit slower, a little bit of a longer game, so we're going more towards the scaling direction with our composition.
Yeah, and while initially I agree they have a lot of tools to team fight, I still think Origin have left themselves some room to change things up in the draft, especially if you see Galio plus Kai'Sa. That's a very strong duo lane that can go mid and collapse on side lane. So especially because Origin is on the red side now, they could take a safe top laner that works up against the Rise and then look for a counter pick for Nuke Duck if they wanted to spread out the map a little more.
I like that you assume that Rise is automatically in the top lane. Remember that it can be flexed into the mid lane as well. And there is room to kind of go all over the shop with that pick. We know that Caps and Wonder very talented on the champion. What I'm interested in this Thresh and Alistar ban. Over in the LCK, you guys might have seen the Ornn pick come through every now and then. And I feel like that given Mickey's champion pool, this could be something that he's thinking about. The Trundle is another option that we've seen come out from Vitality as well.
Even things like the Rakan that end up pointed out earlier are still on the cards. Two strong side laners eliminated in the form of the Kennen and the Jace from G2. And Origin now maybe just looking at their mid lane pick. They're hovering over Zoe, but of course could go anywhere still.
Yeah, they have a lot of options. I think for them now is when they need to decide whether or not they want a top lane pick that can go hard in a side lane, or if they want to look to solidify that full team fight composition. They still do have the option, and they go for it to actually lock in this Zoe. So Zoe does have a decent matchup against the Ryze. She can outrange him pretty heavily, especially once she gets points in her Paddle Star and can poke from afar. But G2 don't have to take that option, and personally, I would way rather see Wonder on the Ryze in the top lane after watching that game up against Fnatic.
Yeah, for sure. And things like Syndra are champions that we've seen as a form of answer to the Zoe. Right now, when you kind of look across the damage, they have a lot of flexibility. They could pick another mage in mid. They could look for maybe something like a possible Yasuo. They could consider Zed as well, the kind of assassins that we know Caps likes to play. So I feel like that they have a lot of room to experiment right now.
Still a lot of options for them. It was the Braum going across to Mickey, so a tanky support. There's the Hecarim lock-in in the end. It means that Ryze might be flexed to mid.
Yeah, with the Kennen and the Jace ban, it actually was heavy indicated that the Hecarim could have gone in the top lane. They removed a lot of the answers to deal with his often weak early game. And now Origin are answering by going for the Urgot. The first top lane I think we've actually seen in playoffs of the change in Urgot.
Well, hold your thoughts on that, because we still have 25 seconds more to see whether or not they want to flex it. I think it is going to be the Urgot up on the top side of the map. Having the range advantage against Hecarim can help early on, especially because early lane for the Hecarim isn't super strong. You need that first reset fully before you can start to fully come online here, and the Urgot can use that to his advantage.
Well, if you guys want to get a closer look at the mid lane action, you can check out the POV stream. It's Caps playing Ryze on twitch.tv/RiotGames2 into the Zoe matchup, not the easiest matchup in the world. Now, guys, we talked a little bit about how long these teams have had to prepare. G2 and Origin, 3 weeks since we last saw them play, and we didn't really want to make any suppositions as to how they were going to play the game. Looking at these two drafts, what style do you think we're going to see today?
Looks to me like 1-3-1 coming out from G2 with a very early game focus. You have Kalista Braum with a Hecarim on the top side as well. I'm expecting a lot of movement towards the bot side of the map, and I do not expect this laning phase to be long if the game plan is going the way G2 want it. Whereas Origin, I think they've gone for a bit of a different route ender.
Yeah, they definitely have. They have a lot of hard engage and engage from range, which is very hard to play the 1-3-1 style into. So especially between 20 and 30 minutes, we will see these two styles clash, and it's going to be so much fun to watch.
It always is. Top two teams in the LEC fighting off for a spot in the finals in Rotterdam. Of course, the loser will play up against Fnatic, but you don't want to add an extra best of 5 to your tally. It could be 2 best of 5s towards the title here. G2 up against Origin, two of our most storied organizations in the LEC. It's game 1, and I'm sure it's going to be a barnstorm.
So I kind of want to draw my attention to the junglers right now, and because I feel like that when we're looking at this Rek'Sai running the Hail of Blades, very big indicator of early game action, very strong in terms of early dueling. And I feel like that when you look at setup, he actually has quite a few options with the Ryze Rune Prison, very easy to lock a target down and then get the knockup. Good choice of the cleanse coming out from Nuke Duck. But on top of that, the Braum, very strong in actually setting up plays towards the bot side of the map, and a lot of damage with the Hail of Blades Kalista as well.
Yeah, if I'm playing Rek'Sai in this game, I'm definitely looking to go towards the bottom side of the map early. And I would love to see Jankos do a more interesting start here on the Rek'Sai, where you can actually start on the Wolf Camp on the top side of the map away from your bottom lane and path down without revealing exactly where you do want to get it started. But ultimately, you have so much kill threat in the bottom lane. Notice Kalista is also running Hail of Blades, which is a very lane dominant option in this 2 versus 2, and he can really try to take control of the bottom side.
We also have the Conqueror on the Jarman as well, pretty cool. Typically, I'm used to seeing things like the Electrocute for that extra bit of burst damage in the early game. Suggests to me that maybe Cold is looking for a little bit more of a tanky option, more of those sustained damage, longer fights with this kind of rune choice.
Yeah, ever since we've seen a lot more of the Cinderhulk Jarvans, where you go Stone Plate later on and look to team fight, the Conqueror gives you more damage in those extended trades. Also with some nerfs to Electrocute, it became a much worse option for junglers, especially looking for those early game ganks. So Conqueror has taken priority over that option.
Cold pathing up towards the top side. We'll meet Jankos in the jungle, but nothing really going to happen between the two of them. Have to remember, of course, Wonder on the Hecarim does not have Flash, is running Ignite TP. So if you can catch him out early on, it's very hard for that horse to escape.
I want to keep my eyes on the two junglers right now because the scary thing for Jankos is he doesn't actually have priority top, but he does have it mid. So Caps makes his way here first, and now we're going to see a fight.
Smites up, Sleepy Trouble Bubble flashed away there by Jankos. Caps is caught out cold. The Paddle Star doesn't connect either. Caps forced back to the lane, and Cold should be able to secure the Scuttle. Smites it away.
Keep your eyes on Urgot there. Notice how he was the one that was able to start moving down first, so G2 immediately forced to back away from the situation, knowing that they would have been in a numbers disadvantage if they overcommit.
So the start of this game, we were focusing on junglers, and it's already really bad for them. Jankos losing his flash on the top side. Now Cold actually gets control over both Scuttle Crabs. And now with Cold on the bottom side of the map as well, it gives protection for the Patrick Mithy lane. And knowing that there is no flash for the Rek'Sai on the other side means Origin are going to be very comfortable to play out the next few minutes.
And Cold has information as to where Jankos is. He knows that he's on the top side. He saw that the blue wasn't taken, which means that he's allowed to invade towards the bot side of the map. There's push on the bot lane. There's priority in mid as well, so he can feel very safe just putting this Rek'Sai further and further behind very early on in the game.
And Jankos, knowing that he doesn't have that priority on the top side of the map, can't actually walk in and get anything done himself to try and steal away and counter with the Raptors on the other side, unless he does want to go for the more risky play, which ultimately could be punishing, knowing he doesn't have the flash.
You can even see the pings coming out from Origin being like, okay, there's a risk that Jankos is on these right now. Please be careful. Alfari playing underneath his turret. Just having that awareness from the side of Origin because Cold, he's just gone back to base. He's reset, so he can't look to try and challenge.
And it's what we saw in the second half of the split from Origin. Good tracking of the enemy jungler, putting them behind early, meaning that Origin never fall behind in the early game. They don't kill that much, but they don't die either.
So what we just saw here in the bottom lane, Origin may be looking for some early kills themselves. Mithy and Patrick instantly cleared a ward that was placed, so it allowed Cold to sneak in towards the lane, and they can maybe look for a play themselves. Notice Perks has cleanse, but they're going in.
Gonna land the knock up straight onto Mickey. Uses the Guardian, shields himself up. The Ignite not ticking enough. Caps is now teleported in, and Mithy's very low. Doesn't have the flash. The flash in from Perks, looking for the final order. The Rend would be enough. They get him. First blood to Caps, and G2 strike.
G2 with the counterplay bottom side. Caps had reset, had TP'd in towards the bottom, and they get the kill. Origin set it up very well, but ultimately could not finish off Mickey.
Really quick reactions there from Mickey as well, showcasing that the moment he was in danger, he was immediately able to throw up that shield and mitigate a lot of the damage. So keep your eyes on Mickey here. He walks out of the brush, and as Mithy walks in, they have no information. They don't know what's going on. So Mickey moves back in, wants to try and get some intel, and he then becomes the target. He's actually taught it for the entire duration, but the last second he throws up the shield, mitigates a lot of the damage, gets the Guardian proc as well, and then Mithy has very little to do to get out of this situation. Once you go in on the Galio, it's either commit, do or die.
And there was a big difference at the start of the game where Caps decided to take the teleport. Nuke Duck, of course, on the Zoe, not going to have that option. So G2, knowing they had the global advantage, are able to pull that off and find the punish. And you'll notice that it's actually Caps even or ahead in CS in this mid lane. He didn't actually lose much off of that play.
G2 now have about a 600 gold lead, mitigating perhaps how Jankos was put behind in the early game when we saw that fight around the scuttle. Jankos 3/4 of the way to having his flash back up as well, so can start trying to make some moves on that Rek'Sai.
So we keep an eye on who has priority where, because that allows the junglers to do a lot of this pathing at this point in the game. And notice how Wonder has now gotten the push onto Alfari, and he, with a couple of extra levels in his queue, has an easier time now in this 1 versus 1. Also, the Ryze has so much more wave clear at this point in the game than the Zoe does, and this is giving the freedom for Jankos to get control over the topside river and even threaten a potential invade to steal away some of these camps.
Now, if we expect to see these teams look for another play on the bottom side, because some flashes are going to be missing, I was actually trying to track some of the teleports. Wonder and Alfari actually just both use their TPs to get back into lane, so it would be an isolated 2v2 or 3v3 if the junglers were to show up here. And most importantly, for the side of G2, it is Perks without his flash, whereas Patrick still has his own, and that's why we see Origin moving down here with Cold to try and help bounce the wave and deny some minions.
Mickey realizes something might be happening, lands the Winter's Bite, but Nuke Duck is there as well. They're going to jump across the wall with the Blast Cone straight onto a control ward. OG looking for the 4-man dive down towards the bottom side. Jankos is waiting around the corner, but Perks caught up. The double taunt lands. Nuke Duck takes down Perks. Mickey short to follow, and it's a double for the mid laner.
G2 thought they could counter with Jankos, but with no flash on Perks, they stood absolutely no chance. Origin now with full control over this bottom side, get 2 quick kills and full damage on the turret plate spot.
Very clean play overall from Origin. as you mentioned, and you already set it up in advance, there were summoners burned towards the bot side of the map. Origen would be looking for another play there. And the important thing was that Nukeduck already started moving before, I believe, Caps got back to lane. So when we jump into this replay, have a look at the minimap. You can see that Ryze is still underneath his tower. So G2 think that they can buy time, they can play safe, but in the meantime, another fight has just happened.
Caps pulled into the grinder! Alfari gets the kill. He was the one to come down from the top lane. I'm sure we'll have another look at that. But I thought it was G2 that were meant to make all the early game proactive plays. It seems to be Origen who are coming out on top.
Yeah, while their first gank didn't work out in favor of them, they didn't slow down, they immediately retaliated, they looked for a window of opportunity, and they end up making the play happen. So, beautiful stuff from them, and Origen now off to a really strong early game.
And it's all being cold as well. 0-0-3, 100% kill participation on that Jarvan already.
Now looking at this setup, after the dive bottom lane, Cold and Mythy path through the bot side jungle. Beautiful interrupt right there on the Realm Warp. But of course, there was no vision to actually spot them out, and they knew that. So they walk up the river. At the same time, Alfari had full push top lane. You've been talking about priority so much this game, Vedius. Well, Origen just had it on both side lanes, so it was Caps that was punished because of it.
Yeah, beautiful stuff from Origen, and they're the ones controlling this early game. And one of the questions we had coming into this game was, what will these teams look like coming into this series? They've had 3 weeks to prepare. It's very difficult for us casters to prepare because we really don't know what these teams are going to look like. And at G2, it feels like that they kind of stuck to what they know. They picked strong lanes. They had an early game plan. Whereas Origen, while they do still have team fighting and they have this scaling kind of path and route, they also have options to play around the early game. They have the Galio, they have the Jarvan, and they're not slowing down. They're constantly looking for plays, and every small misposition, they're looking to punish.
That's something Origen can do so well, where they just read what the other team is going to be doing. I do like a little bit more proactivity out of them in this game, but now it is Jankos. He has his flash once again, and this is what we've been waiting for. 9 minutes into the game, I would have loved to see some more moves from Jankos around this bottom side of the map, and now it feels like they need to make it happen because Kalista is supposed to dominate in the laning phase. Rek'Sai is supposed to find early game kills, but no, instead it is Origen with control over the river and that are looking for the Drake.
Infernal 9 minutes in. Jankos maybe going to burrow in here. He tries to use the Prey Seeker, can't land it, and Cold will secure the first dragon of the series. Nukeduck on his way down as well. Mickey's going to land the Winter's Bike there, and I don't think Origen are going to go for anything more. All they wanted really was the Infernal out of that. They do have a 1,500 gold lead coming up to the 10-minute mark as well.
Yeah, and they've got kills on some of the big carries as well. Alfari is 1-0-0 right now after his good roam towards the bot side. We've also got Nukeduck sitting at 2-0-0. A Zoe, who's this strong this early on into the game, is definitely a scary thing to have to deal with. So Origen, they're in a good spot right now. And they don't really need to force much more because we know they have the scaling advantage on their side. And it's going to be difficult for G2 to execute this 1-3-1 in a deficit.
Definitely is. And you mentioned Nukeduck there on the Zoe, 2-0-0 at the moment. It's so often overlooked as one of the best mid laners in Europe. You know, consistently third best is what we heard in the rap video. But last time these two teams played, he absolutely dominated on the Zed into Cassio matchup. He's going to flash away from Jankos here. Last time Nukeduck met up against Caps, it was 5-1-4, and he just took out Caps in 1v1s in lane.
Yeah, and of course, that was when Nukeduck got the Zed counterpick up against Caps' Ryze, and I hope we get to see the full 5-game series. I hope we get to see Nukeduck on red side a little bit more to get some spicier counterpicks like the Zed to come out, but ultimately, I think Nukeduck is going to be in a very good spot in this game, of course, with the 2 kills, but also just knowing that you are strong on the Zoe as we approach the mid game and your team has control. That's where we see Zoes take complete control over the game, where you don't know where the bubbles are going to be coming from, and then boom, you're one shot.
So Origen perhaps looking to open up the map a little bit more to let Nukeduck do that. They haven't really got that much chip damage on any of these towers yet, taking a plate in the bottom lane, a plate in the mid lane. If you were them, what would be your next step? Do you want to just continue with this laning phase?
Well, I think what Origen are doing that I actually like to see from them is they're bringing their dual lane top side. You see Mythy getting engaged on, but really the focus is on the Herald. There's no objective bottom side, but it's Wonder going very deep, trying to get control. What?
Uses the Onslaught of Shadows as well. Mythy flashes away. I mean, the rest of G2 are all around here. There's 5 members strong, so Wonder relatively safe, but that seems a little bit risky.
Well, the difference here is that Alfari is bottom lane with no teleport, so he is going to be cashing in on turret plates, and G2 are feeling a little bit more pressure to perhaps find a fight or to start the Herald. Unfortunately, they don't have that big a window of time because the TP is going to be coming up relatively soon, so it will just be the flash burnt on the side of Mythy and some control gain for G2.
Now, as you mentioned earlier, and the swap from OG allows them to get priority towards topside, and it better enables them to set up for the Rift Herald as well. But when we look at their vision, one of the advantages of Wonder making that play was that G2 actually got a lot of vision, not only around the river, but some in the enemy jungle as well, which means that they get to track what OG is up to, but more importantly, they get to control the Rift Herald. So this game doesn't snowball out of their control, because if they lose that, then the probability of losing the mid tower increases pretty dramatically, and once they lose that, that's when Zoe really becomes a
Look at this TP.
Caps TPing in behind in the bottom lane. Alfari trying to run away, uses the flash, will knock back the Hecarim. Wonder caught out with the Fear Beyond Death, but Alfari is done for. Origin going to try and react on the top side of the map as they go for the Rift Herald.
They're going to be starting up this Herald, and there's not much G2 can do with perks, or rather caps, on the bottom side of the map. So G2 get the kill on the top laner, but ultimately should be gold down in terms of this Rift Herald, which should be able to be used to pick up a couple of turret plates in one of these lanes.
So one of the advantages of this is now Wonder sits at level 10. Getting all that extra gold in his back pocket means that he's going to scale to be an even bigger threat off in a side lane. And I feel like G2, that's their primary win condition right now, splitting Origin apart. So even though they are at a deficit, you know, we talk about how they are very much looking to play around the early game, but that's not to say that if they fall behind, the game is completely over for them. Ryze and Hecarim still very potent split pushes and side lane threats. The difficulty will just come with, can G2 successfully split apart Origin, or will Origin be in a strong enough state where they force G2 to group up and play around something like a Dragon or a Baron?
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of different teams, especially here in playoffs, trying to pull off the 1-3-1 style. We saw it from Vitality, even Splice a couple games yesterday. And ultimately, what it comes down to is having pressure in all of your lanes. Because if you have pressure bottom lane, you're trying to take an inhibitor tower or anything like that, you need pressure mid lane to back it up. Otherwise, you just get engaged on and die. So the question for me is less of, does Wonder beat Alfari in the side lane? It's more of, can the three-man of G2 actually take control over the mid game, which is where I'm not quite so sure at the moment.
You can see Origin trying to play around pressure mid-bot now. They stole away a teleport on Nukeduck, so he used that to get down towards the bottom lane. And with an Infernal Drake up in 20 seconds, they're playing the objective game. They get Rift Herald, they get double Infernal, they're in a very good spot.
So Origin aren't going to get any turret plate money from this Herald, but they will get control, and they know Perks is in the top lane, so they should be able to knock down this turret very easily, bringing Nukeduck over for the 5-man push. Then they can take the Infernal on top of it. Origin are getting everything they want.
But the thing I really want to highlight here is yesterday, when we saw Splice won a 1-3-1, remember that they kept grouping, and then Fnatic would obliterate them. And the thing that G2 recognizes is that this early into the game, if they fought a 5v5, they would lose. So instead, they're just going to accept the deficit. They're going to put the gold where they can by utilizing turret plates, getting solo gold from towers, and they're just going to buy onto the fact that they can wait later on and rely on things like the side lane and 1-3-1.
Yeah, here we go. We got Dominate tweeting out, Cold has played this game perfectly so far, and I agree. You know, I think the bottom lane, they got counter-ganked, and that was a bit unfortunate for them, but he has been tracking very well, and as you can see, 3 out of 3 kill participation there on the Jarvan. Got control very early on in the game, burning Yankos' flash as well, and as soon as the Rek'Sai fell down in the ability to impact the game, that's when we saw Origin was able to take some more control and get to this point where they feel very good.
And they're hitting those first completed items now as well. You've got Stormrazor alongside the pickaxe for Patrick to get that Cathian Rain upgrade. You've got the Luden's Echo and the Black Cleaver completed on Nukeduck and Alfari. And on the other side, Caps is building up towards Seraphs. You do have a Blade of the Ruin King. You've almost got a Trinity Force on its way for Wonder, but G2 just feel that little bit behind, even though the gold is only about 600 difference.
G2 right now, advantage-wise, or rather objective-wise, they are definitely at a massive deficit, but as you talked about the items, it's not a massive disparity between the two teams right now. When that Trinity Force is completed for Wonder, I feel like he's going to be, oh, there you go. I think he's going to be a lot harder for Alfari to deal with. I'll be honest, haven't got a huge amount of experience with the Hecarim-Urgot matchup.
It'll be fun to watch.
On paper, I would assume that the Hecarim does have the advantage in a straight-up one.
Yeah, I think Hecarim does.
Especially with an Ignite, right?
You have the Ignite. I do believe you outscale in that matchup, especially because with the changes to Q, the longer you fight, the more damage you're going to be doing. As a melee champion, you also get more benefit out of taking the Conquer. You get a longer duration on the stat buffs there as well. So I do expect Wonder wins out in the side lane, but it's one of those side lane matchups where I don't think you're actually going to be getting kills.
Yes.
You just know you do more damage, you win the fight, so you get pressure. And that is good for G2, but ultimately, the difference maker for me is whether or not they can use this Ryze to take towers, because that is a matchup where G2 will be able to make some ground.
Yep.
We have been watching Caps play the mid lane Rise this game so far. If you want to vote for who plays in the next, who we see on the POV next game, it's Patrick or Perks. You can spam that in chat right now, and it will be decided by the end of the game. Looks like Origin are going to try and make a play down towards this bottom side. Wonder, with that Trinity Force, too big to be dealt with by only one man, but Origin will force him out. They'll get their second tower of the game, and with it, probably about 1,000 gold lead overall.
Just notice how many members are towards the bot side as well. You know, in your solo queue game, you'd be like, oh, this Rek'Sai is just overextending in the bot lane, but in the shadows lies in wait Alfari, Mithy, and Cold all ready to counter. The problem with committing this many members is it gives Caps the freedom to push towards the top side and actually take half the HP from this tier 2 top tower.
And can we take a moment to appreciate the vision control Caps has surrounding this push up top lane? I mean, it's just absurd. At some point, the vision becomes almost like not relevant. Like there's some wards that are being like, yeah, they're being packed in by 2 other wards. It's just so much up here to protect the split push from Caps, because again, that I think is where G2 will have the biggest advantage, being able to use both the TP and the Realm Warp to collapse. And when OG do decide to group up as 4 or 5 members and try to force a fight, if they aren't successful in making that engage, we will see Caps getting damage down on the turrets.
Caps has so much vision. If he was playing CSGO, he would be VAC banned for map hacks. It's just too much awareness for G2. You can see Origin trying to do some on the other side of the map, but they don't really need too much deep vision yet. They still have that top tower to take, so as long as they can keep G2 from fully engaging onto them, they should be fine.
So, Jankos doesn't realize that that red ward is there, and I believe he got interrupted by a redemption from Nukeduck just to delay the back. So, Nukeduck just being obnoxious, as all Zoe players are. But speaking of Nukeduck, he's actually built up a pretty massive lead in the mid lane right now. He has a 300 bounty on top of himself, and remember, this is the 300 on top of the 300 gold that he is worth as well. So that is a big 600 gold payout that you could get should you find that kill onto Nukeduck. But with the cleanse and the flash still up, I think it's going to be difficult for G2 to lock him down.
Certainly would be. Now, as we approach this 20-minute mark, I feel like the game has certainly slowed down a whole lot. And to me, I asked the question, like, what style of these teams are we seeing? And this is not the G2 that exploded between 15 and 20 minutes. When this team went 9-0 at the first half of the split until they lost their very first game against Origin, they crushed during this period. They were always looking for skirmishes, always looking to blow open the game. Whereas Origin, they know they're in a good position. Even though it's just an 800 gold lead, you have the double Infernal, you have the stronger team fight, so they are more than comfortable slowing this game down. And it feels like they are the ones in control of this game, just because we haven't seen anything happen for a while.
But they are giving up tower damage, they're giving up gold across the map. You can see Perks now sitting at 2 items as well. And the question we had before was, how much can G2 give up to Origin in the early game? Now my question becomes, how much can Origin give up right now? And what point are they waiting for to really come online?
Well, force to use the ultimate. I like that from Wonder. I think he's just conscientious of where Mithy is, and he also knows that Origin will be towards the bot side of the map with the Drake just being alive. But in terms of break points, I think for G2, I mean, it's weird, right? Because we've got to remember that both these teams have very different win conditions. G2, if they tried to play the full 5v5, I think would be at a pretty big disadvantage, especially with the Kai'Sa and the Urgot in those kind of a situation. And the dive, let's not forget. I mean, obviously Jarvan and Galio, right? So G2 are constantly trying to play on the side lane. And the thing about OG is whenever they want to commit to something, the reality is they have to commit multiple members because they're at their strongest when there is a group rather than in a skirmish or individual environment. That means that they expose areas of the map, and G2 have the awareness to then go, okay, well, this is a pocket of darkness that we can actually invade with relative safety. And that's how they're actually trading objectives relatively well. And now they've actually built up a gold lead back in their back pocket. So props to G2 in actually recognizing the small windows that they can use to claw some map control back in their favor.
Yeah, and while I say that, of course, stylistically, this game does not match what G2 want, I think compositionally, it is okay, because when you are looking to play the split push style of game, you want to avoid the full-on fight. So if Origin are matching members with you, you don't go for that, and rather you just look to continually build up those small advantages, whether it's stealing away a camp here, getting some turret damage there, and then look for the fights where you do have a numbers advantage.
Let's also remember that one of the big things that G2 was good at was punishing mistakes. And they took risks because they knew knew that they could just outplay their opponents. But they're going up against the #2 team in our league. They're going up against Origin, the team that is praised for not making mistakes. They are very calm, they're calculated, they're very precise in how they move around the map. And so G2 can't be as reckless or take as many gambles because they know that while they're good at punishing mistakes, OG can be just as good.
Definitely can. You can see Origin just trying to take down this third tower of the game for themselves. Equalizes that gold premium evenly, but Caps, he's been farming so much in the last few minutes, he's even got a bounty on his own head. 200 gold sitting on him because he's farming more than the average of Origin, but the rest of his team is still keeping up as well. So G2 just finding the perfect way to funnel gold into their mid laner.
Yeah, and Medic, a few minutes ago you asked what is the break point for G2
I did.
At one point, and we didn't get to answer that, so I'd love to answer that.
Because Vedius interrupted.
I
Always
know.
does.
Usually bully me, not him. I like this change. But ultimately, for Origin, I think that their biggest sort of turning point is going to be the Baron buff, because now we're past that 20-minute mark, and what is so strong against 1-3-1 comps is this major objective that you have to fight over. And if Origin eventually they just walk over to this Baron with 5 members, well, you're going to force some teleports. You're going to force G2 into the team fight that they do not want to take. So as long as they set it up properly and they have, you know, pushed out waves, especially in the bottom lane, so they don't just lose their inhibitor if they try to make that move, the Baron buff is where they will be looking to fully take control over the map.
So something that's kind of cool that I just noticed is how. So what you'll notice is that on the bot line, on the bot side of the map, Alfari had to catch a wave. One of the things about this is this creates a window in which Wunder can then move from bot up to join the rest of his team. Origin recognized this, and so that they then send 4 members to the Baron immediately to gain vision control around the objective. This means that Alfari can safely farm bot, and G2 can't force him into a situation where he has to TP in. So it's just very quick. It's a good response from Origin to notice that, again, this is another gap in which G2 can look to punish, and we're just covering our bases as much as we can.
I mean, Origin have total vision control around this area right now. You can see they cleared out the ward. Caps is down towards the bottom side. Maybe Origin just trying to bait out the TP here. G2 not reacting yet. Wunder gonna check it in just a second. Caps clearing out the Gromp, but now they'll know that the Baron has been started, and G2 have to fight. The taunt comes out. Nuke Duck forces away Wunder. Mithy on that front line. Here's the teleport coming in from Caps. Origin might want to turn this one, but already Baron down to 2,000 HP. Origin reset, Baron resets as well. Wunder not there, but has the teleport to join the fight. Fear Beyond Death comes out, doesn't quite connect. And Origin will just back away.
It's a great stop here from G2. The Baron was down to about 2k HP, and Wunder almost got one shot by Nuke Duck. Wunder still has the teleport, and there's some great flank wards if G2 were looking to punish, but ultimately, they are happy. The Baron was stopped in its tracks, and they only lost a TP off of Caps.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that OG just didn't commit to the Baron there. Given that it was only at 2,000 HP, I thought that they would just turn and burn it. I thought they would go for the finish, but I think the issue they had was Nuke Duck was spending his damage on zoning away Wunder, and then Mithy couldn't zone away 3 members of G2, which means that Jankos was in flash range of a potential steal. And if OG lose that Baron, then the 1-3-1 becomes very difficult to deal with. So I think OG in the moment didn't want to take the gamble and just said, okay, we'll play it safe.
Oh my lord. That is what Nuke Duck can do with just 2 kills. And Alfari's just dominating.
Wunder's getting chased, so he has to pop the Onslaught of Shadows there. They sent Wunder to deal with Alfari in the side lane because he has the teleport now, so if a Baron was started, they could go for the double TP in, but Wunder just not in the position to deal with that Urgot anymore.
This will get blocked. No damage to come in through Mickey X, but I guess Alfari just answered the question of who wins the 1v1 in side lane. Holy moly, with double Infernal. It didn't even look close. Oh.
Cap says, Nuke Duck, anything you can do, I can do better, and just shuts down Cold.
It's just Caps and Nuke Duck trying to find the 1v1s, trying to one-shot someone before they can even fight back. I mean, I'm glad we're watching them on the POV stream, because right now, these 2 players are absolutely the most pivotal for their teams.
Group up in the mid lane here from Perks and the rest of G2. That tower still stands. G2 have 2 turrets down in that top lane, so that wave is going to push for quite a while, but Patrick is on his way to deal with it. Look at the damage that's come out from Nuke Duck so far. He's only sitting at Ludens and Morello Nomicon. When he finishes that Rabadon's death cap, he is going to be a very, very scary mid laner.
But props to G2 for showcasing the patience. This is how I would define as losing gracefully. You know what I mean? And in the early game, they conceded every objective. They were the one down in towers, but they played to their composition. They knew they were stronger in the side lanes. And every time OG committed multiple members, G2 would try to trade something elsewhere. And I feel like we're seeing in my opinion, quite high League of Legends, where both team is like very reactive to what is going on. It's like there's multiple levels of mind games where it's like, we're trying to make a play here, we'll respond over here. And now it's getting to a point where you're seeing these small, cool plays coming out from each individual member. Nukeduck landing his skill shots. Caps catching a member out of position. And these are the kind of plays, and these are the kind of players that end up winning these very close matches.
Yeah, I think it's a much more controlled G2 than we're used to seeing as well, who have actually found themselves with a gold advantage through the work of Caps in a side lane, and they've undone a lot of the work that Origin did around the Baron. You know, 23 minutes when they went for that, we set up how they put down the vision line, pushed mid, put down deeper wards, then started the Baron. Well, that's all been undone now, so G2 are not going to be scared about Origin starting that one up anytime soon.
It's been a few moments since we last checked up on the items. You've got Rabadons, you've got Seraphs and Spellbinder complete on Caps. Bloodthirster finished for Perks alongside the Blade of the Ruined King and the Runans. Righteous Glory on Wonder as well. Makes him a little bit tankier and can get onto that backline.
Yeah, of course, Patrick also going for the Stormrazor Ginsus for the double evolve faster, and also the Static Shiv on top of that. So the Stormrazor is going to give the benefits of Static Shiv, that extra damage and AoE bonuses, as well as the fleet footwork. Now Cole just looking for a little bit of control here in the jungle.
Notice how they're taking it in turns in controlling the side wave, along with getting control over Baron. You'll see that in the bot side of the map, Caps doesn't actually have teleport, and that's kind of a dangerous situation for G2 to be in, but they have the Realm Warp as well, so they're confident that he can join the fight should something like that decide to kick off. But the point that I'm making is that they brought Alfari to the mid lane. They said, okay, if you're going to try and control side, we're actually just going to use a numbers advantage to gain control over the river. And what they've done is they brute forced their way in, and now it's G2 who are grouping up. They have control over bot, and it's Origin that are now the one that's running away.
Patrick's out of position. Patrick's totally out of position here. The heal comes out, but the Fate's Call will be used. Void Rush used as well. The chase comes out. Patrick's still dodging away. The Glacial Fissure misses as well. He's eaten up a lot of ultimates here, and Origin will try and react on the other side of the map. The Redemption keeps him alive. Almost takes out Jankos. Almost takes out Wonder. Can't quite get it. The shutdown comes out, but Origin are trying to push in mid lane to react.
I couldn't believe that Patrick used his heal and his flash to run away when inevitably he was going to die, but the damage he put down on Chienko stopped G2 rather from immediately turning back towards that Baron. Origin also pushed down mid, so they lose their ADC, but not the rest of the map.
Unfortunately for Origin, they couldn't convert it into any additional objectives, and they must have thought the same thing we did. He's just going to die. Just kind of reset, go back on the base, stock up on wards, and then get ready to move back on the map. But he survived for a very long time, and if they'd recognized that, they may have been able to push for that mid-tier one, maybe set up vision around the Drake, but instead they don't to convert it into it.
Yeah, G2 were just like, hey, is this an easy kill? And Patrick is like, no, this is Patrick. Although the least experienced
that was
player.
Weak.
That was awful.
Weak.
I'm not Dracos. Okay, I'm not Dracos. Although he's probably the least experienced player on either of these teams, and a lot of people did wonder if he could show up on a team like Origin after coming through H2K last year. I think Patrick's been probably one of the standout performers for Origin, and his team does play around him a lot of the time as well.
Yeah, one of the big criticisms I had of him at the beginning of the split was that he was kind of live or die by Mithy, and Mithy, who kind of struggled at the very start of the split, he died often. Meant that bot lane wasn't a very reliable one. But as the split's gone on, he's gained a lot more confidence, his champion pool has expanded, and we've heard nothing but praise from the Origin members about how talented of an individual he is. So excited to see what he can bring in this series. Yes, he is currently sitting on 1 death, but he is still a very strong Kai'Sa. He's still very relevant to the success of this team, and it will be important for him to be one of the big damage dealers as the fights will progress throughout this game.
Yeah, with the Infinity Edge coming in soon, as well as the double Infernals backing him up, he's going to be the consistent DPS on the side of OG, whereas we'll look towards players like Nukeduck to find those ones that overstep on the side of G2 and look for those picks.
Do see Caps actually amassing a 50 CS advantage or so in the mid lane now, sitting on a 600 gold bounty. Anyone who kills him would get 900 gold into their back pocket. He's actually at 13,000 gold, so only the 11,800 on Nukeduck as well. Somehow, G2 have just been able to find more gold on the map than Origin.
It's just really good lane assignments. It is just... Yeah. If you want to learn about how to manage your sideways, this is a great game to watch because G2 have just been very respectful of their opposition, and they've been very good at maximizing farm across the map. It's been very impressive to watch how they've controlled the game so far, and now they're actually the ones kind of back in control, and honestly, I don't think anyone can do with Caps. He's level 18. He's by far the highest level in this game, and he can generate as much pressure as he wants because he's sitting on the teleport, which means that you've now got this 3-man unit of G2 in the mid, and see again Hecarim up in the top lane. So G2 constantly have access to this Baron River.
Yeah, no one will ever be able to 1v1 Caps, and Nukeduck really doesn't want to be bot lane picking up minion waves, and that sort of brings me to reevaluating how G2 approach a potential team fight, because at 31 minutes in, eventually it's going to come down to a Baron. This ending in split push is very unlikely. I think G2, their best bet is to try to split up the fight with the Hecarim diving in, maybe a Realm Warp as well, because Ryze and Kalista, if they're hitting just 1 or 2 members, can absolutely crush.
Caps is on the inhib. Caps is on the inhib right now, and Origin realize they have to do something.
Yep,
they're going to go for the fight. Alphari's going down towards the bottom lane to try and deal with Caps, maybe actually just teleporting into the fight instead. Baron down to 10,000 HP. G2 can just poke from the side if they want. Wonder has the ultimate to jump into the backline. 6,000 HP. They're going for the engage. Caps teleporting in. The Cataclysm already used. Cold ignited. He is down. The Onslaught of Shadow gets onto the backline as well. And here comes Caps. And here comes the rest of G2. Origin made the desperate call, but Patrick's down. Alphari gets 1, but the rest of Origin are just running for the hills. The Realm Warp to chase onto Nukeduck as well. And G2, they say, OG, you can want a team fight. All you want. Alphari gets the double, almost. Gets the triple. The heroes, they just, no way has Alphari just turned that one around. It was all G2, but Caps now comes in, and Caps will clean it up for G2.
Caps and Perks are the ones alive. They have the damage to take this Baron, and with the Rend to knock this one out, there's nothing Mithy can do. G2 didn't even split the fight. They just said, we'll fight you 5v5, and they crushed.
Incredible stuff there from both teams. It looked like it was G2's fight all the way to Sunday. Alphari somehow managed to pick up a triple kill, but in the end, Caps is just too darn good at League of Legends. He gets the double, G2 get the Baron, and with it a 5,000 gold lead.
Felt like Origin got a little desperate here. They knew the split push wasn't going well. Vetty, show me what happened.
So we're going to start off by taking a quick look at the minimap, and the first thing you'll notice is that Caps is more than happy to just keep pushing in this bot lane, and Urgot is in a very awkward situation. Does he try to answer, or does he TP in? And he's going to make the decision right. We'll make the 5v5 happen. So as we kick off the replay, what you'll notice is the Origin are confined in this tight space, and it's Cold that starts to engage. He's the one that decides, let's just go on to Mickey, and the problem with this is Perks can then drag him out and take him to safety. And this frontline Jarvan cannot soak up all this damage. Immediately then the Hecarim dives onto the backline, and then the 2 carries from Origin get collapsed upon. And at this point, Origin are just split apart. It's only Alphari that can turn this fight around. But then with G2 trying to split up the fight themselves, trying to clean up, that's when Alphari comes in at the end and at least saves the team fight with what he can.
Yeah, Alphari in the straight up 1v3 in the backline was just nuts to watch. I think that's a Triumph heal coming in at the end as well to keep him topped off. But ultimately, the biggest playmaker in that fight was Wonder. The fear that made Patrick run straight into the enemy team, and then just huge damage onto that backliner made the swing so massive.
Baron buff remains for 2 minutes here for G2. It only sits on Caps and Perks, but Caps we've already seen can just split push 4 days. Looks like G2 are going to group up as 5 for the moment in the mid lane. That inhibitor is open in the bottom lane, but while you have Baron, you might as well use those cannon minions to chip away at these towers.
I would like to see Wonder now move down towards the bot side. He does have the teleport himself, and remember that with his E and ultimate, he can very quickly join a fight. But look at Cold.
Cold going in, the Cataclysm used onto Caps. Here's the hero's entrance as well. Cold goes gold, and Caps slept. They're putting it all onto the backline. A momentary freeze frame, because in the end, Nukeduck will take down Caps. Wonder has the flank position. Yakos down as well. Patrick's alive. Nukeduck as well. Patrick now goes down. It's all on Nukeduck trying to get the damage into this fight as Alphari steps behind his tower. G2 lose 2. Nukeduck gets 1 more! A consolation kill on the back as Perks now caught up, taunted up. The shutdown comes out, and Origin have fought back.
The fight was close, but the re-engage from Origin was so clean. Nukeduck finds the snipe, and then it's Cold that takes down Perks. The way this fight started, huge. This Alienware replay, you can see that, Caps tried to get out of there with the Realm Warp stopwatch, but that doesn't work anymore, man. He gets shut down almost immediately, and then it looks good because Wonder is on the flank. He is able to trade kills, so it's ADC for ADC, but then this snipe on towards Mickey. Boom, it's beautiful, and now Perks, he has nowhere to go.
Yeah, he doesn't have the summoner spells to escape from this situation, and honestly, great engage from Cold, coming in from the Fog of War, but now Wonder
actually kept the inhibitor tower alive in the mid lane by himself versus 3 members of Origin there, so They weren't quite able to break the base of G2.
But this is massive for Origin now because they've been able to just completely remove the Baron buff from the side of G2. And the fault here from G2 is the fact that they grouped up in the mid lane. They were a 4-man versus the 5-man, and Origin were like, we can take this fight. Remember, they're playing this 1-3-1 style of comp. They want to split apart the map, but because Caps didn't have his TP, they didn't want to send him off to a side lane yet. And that was the perfect window for Origin to then force it and end up coming out on top. Now, the gold is still in favor of G2, but OG are demonstrating that they still have a lot of tools with this composition to find ways back into this game.
They definitely do, and as these team fights have broke out, it feels like both sides are looking to assassinate the backliners right off the bat. But keep in mind, the front line of these two teams still do damage. You have an Urgot that's just pumping out massive DPS at the back of these fights, as well as a Hecarim and a Rek'Sai. So you have to keep this in mind in the extended fights that champions like the Urgot can turn these around.
And speaking about assassinating backlines, it's always important to see who has stopwatches left. There's one on Nukeduck, but there is no stopwatch now on Caps. He will get the shield from the Seraphs, but if they can catch him out, they can burst him down, and he won't be able to use that stopwatch to survive.
Well, he is going to sit in a side lane for a little bit longer. He is working towards completing the Zhonya's Hourglass, but honestly, gold is getting to a point where it doesn't really mean that much. QSS has now just been completed for Patrick as well. And this is the kind of game that everyone wanted to see. Very close between the two teams. We didn't see a lot of chaotic team fighting very early on. All we've seen is very good map control between the two teams. Origin being forced into a situation that G2 is able to capitalize on, but then OG doing exactly the same thing back to G2, and this is only game 1.
It's been so crazy to watch. Now, both these teams have different ideas of how to play the next few minutes, because in 1 minute, 15 seconds, Origin have their eyes on the Baron. But what I want to see G2 do, and you can see they're thinking about it with Wunder and Caps towards this bottom lane, is with double TP, you can actually look for a 2v1 play on a champion like Alphari to turn the game into a 5 versus 4.
Now, with the bot inhib down, this is something that Origin constantly have to deal with, but it will be up in about 2 minutes. You guys can see the timer in your bottom left-hand corner of the screen. This will give you a good indicator of the amount of time that G2 have to play with. So they're actually now setting up vision around the top side of the map. You can see that this jungle is littered with wards. They're going to quickly reset, restock, and so this Baron dance can then start to happen and force OG into a fog of darkness, where they can then get picked off. Or we have another crazy Baron fight happen.
I hope so.
Me too. Coming into this next fight, though, look at the items, because there's a Thornmail finished for Alphari, and Perkz has triple lifesteal items here on the Kalista. The 40% healing reduction from Grievous Wounds is going to be massive, because we know Perkz just has to hit frontline. Kalista isn't a very long-range ADC. She wants to be hitting the tanks to put her Ren stacks in them, but if you're not getting the healing, the burst damage of someone like Nukeduck can be very threatening.
In terms of summoners, Patrick doesn't have his flash. Mickey X doesn't have his health bar anymore. Mickey doesn't have a flash either. He's going to be forced away. Alphari's answering in the bottom lane to the push, has the teleport to join the fight, but maybe Cap's in a good position here as he catches out Mithy. It's a very tanky Galio, though. Here comes Wunder. TP used, Onslaught of the Shadows. They try and get away from it. Patrick shielded up, healed up, and here comes Perkz on the front line trying to get through Alphari. Alphari's already taken down one. Mithy gets the Justice Punch onto Caps, who have to flash away, but he's pulled back into the heart of Origin, and they rip out the heart of G2 as Caps falls. Origin going to turn straight towards the Baron.
Origin get the 2 kills, and Caps, the carry of G2, is down. Origin in a beautiful position now to start up the Baron. Jankos is alive, has the flash coming up soon, but it would be a miracle to stop this.
He's actually going for the TP into bot lane. I wonder if G2 will be able to actually make this happen. I don't know if Alphari can stop Wunder right now.
Question is how much health is left on the Baron as well, because they will have the recalls empowered up. They're going to get them out.
Ooh,
Wunder
okay.
unable to get there. They're looking for that inhib tower in mid, but I don't know if Wunder will be able to get all of this before Origin react. Baron buff goes down. Origin get it. Wunder unable to take the inhib tower, so Origin lose nothing.
But you're seeing now the power of Zoe at this point in the game, especially around the Baron dances, because let's not forget, that all started because Mickey took such a huge chunk of damage from Nukeduck. Then Origin moved into the Baron River, and they thought, okay, with Mickey out, we have a numbers advantage, it's easy priority for us. And so G2 said, well, while they're split up, let's try and force a fight. Let's try and collapse onto Patrick, who's alone in mid, but he has the QSS, he has the GA, he's not that easy to kill.
Yeah, all it takes is that one clutch bubble to turn the fight. fight. And we see it's G2 that wanted to find the engage, but Patrick is not able to have any damage go down onto him. He gets the peel from the rest of his team. Meanwhile, well, G2's backline can't burst down Alfari, so Alfari gets the massive ult to pull Caps in, and once Caps goes down, G2 have no chance.
Big props to Mithy there as well, using his ultimate to keep his AD carry alive, and then immediately being able to land that knockup onto Caps as well was a huge part in turning that fight in their favor. 8-1 and 12 on the Galio so far. But Patrick, more importantly, has both of his summoner spells still up and available. This is going to be a very difficult AD carry to kill.
And the inhibitors respawned in that bottom lane as well, so Origin don't even have to react to super minions pushing in. OG will come down towards this bottom lane looking for the tower if they can get it. G2 trying to get prio towards mid. There's an Elder Dragon up in just a second's time.
Yeah, we'll be spawning now. G2 clearing out some vision, but there are Baron minions in the bottom lane. G2, though, aren't too concerned with that because they're just going to start this one up. This could be very dangerous. Cold is on the flank and looking for a flashless Caps.
Patrick moving forward here as well. G2 forced away. The Elder Dragon
this?
looks like they might just concede it. That's
they have prio.
They're going to go with the Realm Warp. They're going in.
They can use the Realm Warp mid lane because this tower's taken so low by Wonder.
But Elder's already down.
But
Baron.
Elder is gone. The Baron recalls will come through, but they get the inhibitor. This is big for G2 because this is the only chance in the next 2 minutes and 20 seconds that they can fight back against Origin.
Whew. So they're just going to take the inhibitor trade for this very important neutral objective. Now, Origin, though, they can just group at mid, they can run it down, and they have their eyes set on the mid inhibitor themselves. Note there's still a minute left on the Baron. G2 don't have those Baron-empowered recalls, so they're just left running away.
Yeah, this is very dangerous here for the side of G2, and Origin will be able to run in. G2 need to concede slowly. Okay, clear the waves as best you can, but the team fight is not going to be easy. There are some wards, but no real teleport option without that spell onto Wonder. G2 have to give it up.
They give up the mid lane inhib. There's still a minion wave here as well with it. Origin looking to go a little bit further. How do you prepare for a moment like this? Well, G2 tried to against Fnatic in week 9. Will that pay dividends? Mickey there on the front line. They force nuked up back to Glacial Fissure. Doesn't land. A G2, they're conceding slowly, but they did not lose anything more than that mid lane inhib. Perks going in. The engage comes out. That's a lot of damage already. Perks is taking out Mithy on the back line. Nuked getting chased away, but Patrick's still alive, and Yakos can't get onto him. 2 GAs popped in the middle of the fight, and it's a cluster of damage as G2 just try and pick one player off at a time. They get to Nuked up. Gets the kill as Patrick secures it in the end. OG get 1 for 2.
And once again, G2 find another big fight, but Origin are resilient. They convert it into another tower, and both these teams walk away, I guess, happy. Both of them.
Just give me 5 games of this. Just give me 5 games
So
of this.
let's actually have a look at how this start off. The first thing to note is how Nukeduck uses his ult aggressively. That then allows Perks to get this tiny bit of chip damage, and the exhaust comes out onto Mickey. Yes, he misses his ultimate, but then Origin funnel themselves into this choke point.
Like, why go here?
This is when the ultimate from Perks comes through, the big knockup comes as a follow-up, and then Mithy drops. And then you have Wonder zoning the carries away, giving Caps and Perks the free time to just melt through the front line, while Nukeduck is missing pivotal skills. If he landed that Q, maybe this fight goes more in their favor, but it ends up being a 1 for 2 in favor of G2. They buy a little bit more time, and with the Elder wearing off, we're now waiting for the next big Baron buff.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real here. Origin overstayed in that mid lane. They had a big wave top lane they could have gone back for, and then they put themselves in this super tight corridor where Zoe has to throw skill shots in a straight line. There's multiple tanks being able to block it, so it was the perfect time for G2 to find the engagement right there. Origin can't fight in positions like that, or they give G2 a chance in the 5v5.
44 minutes in. There's 500 gold between these two teams. Baron buff has expired. Elder's expired as well. Everyone's sitting at full build pretty much, including Caps now having that Zhonya's Perks. 5 items strong, looking to help his team into the finals in Rotterdam.
So OG are actually much happier in this situation because now G2 are constantly grouped up as a 5. And while we have seen G2 have won a couple of fights, usually the situation just has to be very dire for Origin in order for them to win them. Origin, if they just have the straight 5v5 front to back, they're very confident they can win it because of the long range from Zoe and the mobility that Patrick has on the Kai'Sa.
So keep in mind what's going to be happening in the coming minutes, because 40 seconds away from Baron, OG need control over mid, because what could very well occur is Origin push mid, walk in towards the Baron, and then you can use the Rise Realm Warp. Because you have super minions in mid lane still,
true.
if you are G2, you don't have to look for the fight. You can look for the backdoor on either an inhibitor as a solo on Caps, or just take those super minions into the enemy base, avoid the 5v5, and look for the race.
And you know G2 is the kind of team that will do that. The other thing you have to be very conscientious of is a sneak Baron from G2 as well.
True.
Realm Warp into the back of the pit can be something that you do completely by surprise. They have one of the Mountain Drakes as well, and with the Callista, Hecker, and Rise, you can just melt through that. You might not even need the jungle, but here's the
TP
TP.
behind. Origin going to force the fight as they go for the engage onto Jankos. Here's the Hero's entrance as well. Perks flashes out of the back of it. The chase is on for OG. Nuke getting in, but the cleanse from Perks will keep him alive. Cold gets Jankos. Cap still pushing in the sideline. He's Realm Warping forward. Wonder now on the flank, trying to get together with his mid laner, just forced away. Caps is going for the inhib.
Here's the thing, though. Origin did not pull the trigger to move towards the Baron. They're losing pressure on this bottom lane. Now G2, they're starting it up.
What? They've
no
gone to answer Caps.
They have the Ren. They have the Ren. They got the inhibitor, and all of G2.
This is an incredible call from G2. Caps is just outplaying as well on the side lane. We should switch this Baron's to G2. Let's see what Caps is doing. The Zhonya's comes out from Nuke. He's almost taken out. Caps still in there. Caps is trying to 1v3. In the end, he goes down. Baron goes across to G2.
G2 still get the Baron. Unbelievable.
And this is what is so scary about G2. Conventional League of Legends, they just throw that out the window. They just come up with, like, they should be in a disadvantage in this situation. Remember, they're the ones that have just lost their jungler. They're the ones that, like, they're flat. The AD carry doesn't have a flash, and Caps just makes this play where he's like, 1v3, I can get the inhibitor, I can get out. He goes back in, and he's like, I can win this fight.
And he's dodging everything right now, by the way. Forces the Zhonya's out of Nuke Duck, using the phase rush and the movement speed from the kit to get away.
Oof.
Gets a little hypey at the
he
end.
flashes into the taunt. Yeah. But now it's G2 with the Baron, and they need to try and use this somehow. They need to threaten. Like, ideally, they want to split apart the map, but OG, they keep grouping up, and now the Elder is in 30 seconds, so G2, they'll be forced to fight again, because a second Elder, they can't afford to give up.
But again, look at this. There's an Elder in 25 seconds, and mid lane inhibitor has respawned. I wonder what Caps will do.
This game is incredible. We're a minute away from the longest game of the split at 48 minutes and 5 seconds. That was G2 Fnatic. A very similar game to this one in all states of affairs. First versus second, G2 and Origin are showing us why they tipped the standings at the end of the regular season.
Yeah, it's funny. Yesterday, when... I might not have time for this story.
Is it a quick one?
No.
Then no.
All right.
Just talk about the game.
Yeah, I'll tell the story a little bit later, but... the Baron, the Elder Dragon is now being set up. Remember that the bot inhib has been taken. All of the other inhibs have respawned, which means that G2 should have constant priority. But with this being kicked off...
You can't give up second Elder.
You don't want to. But G2, again, they don't play conventional League. They're going to find a new way of doing things.
Caps going towards mid.
They're going to do it.
4,000 HP left on the Elder. Jankos trying to get in. Jankos steals it away, and now G2 are just going to force down mid. All of Origin need to back away to try and but Jankos is keeping him around. He's down into the GA. Mickey there as well. They get Jankos, but who has been able to back? Nuke's got away. Cold sticking on Mickey. Keeps Patrick in the realm, and there's the Nexus towers going down. G2, they steal it away. They get it, and G2 take the Nexus in an incredible game one.
Are you kidding me? It happened again.
This time round, Origin didn't have the Baron buff. They had the Elder Dragon stolen from them, and G2 made the decision. We can end this game right now. Beautiful League of Legends between the two teams. Fantastic game one.
Give me 5 games of that. Just give me that until I run out of breath. That was incredible. G2 with the 4D chess with the cosmic brain calls. And I can't believe that was how the game ended. But G2 show us when it comes to the crunch, when it comes to the late game, you can never count them out. Both these teams will be going to Rotterdam next weekend along with Fnatic. Be sure to get your tickets for the main event at eu.lolesports.com/Rotterdam. Remember, the winner will go straight through to the finals. The team that loses today will face Fnatic in our semifinals next Saturday.
And it's possible we just get a rematch of this as well. Just give me 10 games of this. Why not? You have to see this in person. I just can't believe it.
What a great game one. And, like, mad props to Origin, right? Because this was not a one-side. Like, when when G2 and Fnatic played, there were a lot of mistakes, right? Like it was G2 punishing over steps, over confidence, over eagerness from Fnatic, and there were moments where you could say, okay, this game has become a bit of a mess. But this game, I felt like it was just nothing but proactive plays, really good vision control, management of sideways, playing towards their win conditions. Like there was just such good decisions from both teams, like multiple points. It was just such fun League of Legends to watch. This is what I want to see from our two best teams that we have in Europe, and I'm so happy that this is the best of 5, because this is what we want.
It was just amazing. To tell you more about G2's win, we're going to pass it over to Shox and the analysts. Welcome back for more League of Legends as G2 Esports and Origin fight for a spot in the final. We're coming off a back and forth game one. And if you want a closer look at the action, you can check out our POV stream over at twitch.tv/RiotGames2. This time, we'll see the game through the eyes of Patrick. Ooh. You can also watch G2 Origin and Fnatic in Rotterdam next weekend as they fight for the first LEC title. Get your tickets at eu.lolesports.com/Rotterdam.
Yes, you should do that. But before that, watch this game because it's going to be great. So, we're in for game 2 between G2 and Origin. I'm very excited to see how the draft will shape up. It looks like that G2 will be remaining on the blue side. Remember that the loser of the previous game gets choice of side selection, which means the Origin chose red. They won the counter pick, they want to have those options, but it also kind of forces you into some bans and things like the Silas. And last game, they also banned away Kale and Akali.
Yes, they did. And I think both these teams, with how close the game was, would be comfortable running it back. But the big pick that speaks out to me is the Rise. Whether or not Origin want to remove that, as opposed to the Akali pick, which they did ban third in game number 1, because Caps basically just won the game for his team with that pick.
A little bit of a turn up here on the G2 ban phase as well, as they removed the Galio instead of Morgana for their final ban. So they were pretty frustrated with how good Mithy was on that Galio, how much it brought to the team fight. Here, Origin taking their time, pontificating, thinking about exactly who they're going to ban, and it will be the Rise taken away.
So I really like this Rise in the gap between the games. Ender and I were talking about how this champion just allows G2 to be more creative than they already are. This team is just very innovative in how they approach the draft, and they were just like, well, you know what? It's extremely strong for us, so they're going to take it off the board.
This is super fast. Rek'Sai picked up, then Lissandra Jarvan straight away from Origin, matched by a Xayah Rakan, and already won the last pick of phase 1.
Yeah, so last game, the Kalista Braum was supposed to win lane, but it wasn't too hot. This time around, they go for the Lovers duo. I like this a lot, especially with the buffs that Xayah got on this patch. She became a much stronger champion, and having the Rakan as well gives you a lot of tools to play around this bottom side of the map if you are Jankos.
So right now, Origin, they have a lot of utility already in their composition. They have a lot of peel as well. The Tahm Kench really good at getting people out of those awkward situations. I've always kind of wondered why many people pick the Tahm Kench into the Rakan because of his AoE charm. There's always the risk of, you and the target getting locked up. But if Tahm Kench kind of stays, he can soak up a lot of the damage with his great health. And then if a target ends up getting locked down, the moment that charm runs out, he can then consume you out of any awkward situation. So I think many sports do quite like that matchup in the laning phase as well.
You see Origin focusing out the mid laners in their second phase of the bans. Akali, Corki removed. Ezreal taken away by G2. Expect to see another AD carry in that slot.
Yeah, now looking at what Origin want to pick here for Patrick specifically, I actually wouldn't be opposed to seeing a champion like the Ashe, perhaps. I think that having some extra lockdown on a champion like the Rakan that wants to be diving in towards you can be very powerful. And the big takeaway for me here from Origin is that you can go for your ADC here. It looks like it may be the Varus as opposed to any of these other picks. Not going to get baited by that, but ultimately what they can do is they can flex this Lissandra around and get the absolute best matchup for Nukeduck possible in mid.
Yeah, certainly can.
It's not that often we see Lissandra flex towards the top lane anymore, though. It's happened
yesterday.
Yeah.
So yesterday,
I
but
think
it's one game
around
in
the
10,
world
one
as
game
well,
15.
we've seen it a whole lot more than we have here at home in the LEC.
And you already talked about the Varus pick. I do quite like it. Adds further utility to the already strong team fighting that Origin have drafted for themselves. I feel like they're taking a very similar approach, but to be fair, G2 haven't really showcased a lot. They already have good engage with the Rakan. I think they've got a strong 2v2 bot that they can look to play around, and G2 are going to very quickly round out their draft with 2 big comfort picks for themselves.
Yeah, and G2 are going to use Nukeduck's own counter pick against him with the Swain into Lissandra. Now, because these 2 picks are so flexible, G2 are just going to match where this Lissandra goes, I feel, with the Swain.
Yep.
You want to get it in that matched up lane, and Aurelia has a lot of really good matchups where she can go just about even. So G2, even though they're on blue side, have the flexibility to deny them a hard counter.
Ooh, I really like this Poppy hover though, because I think that it does very well into, fun fact, champions that have a lot of dashes and things like Rakan, things like Aurelia. I believe it. Does it work against Rek'Sai tunnels? Do you know?
It does, yes.
Oh, yeah. So,
it's really mean. Her ultimate will go through because you're unstoppable, but the tunnels, no fun.
So a lot of the mobility tools that G2 have in their draft get mitigated by the Poppy. So I do quite like this pickup. And again, I think that OG have gone very team fight style. They have a very typical front to back. They do have a little bit of dive with the Lissandra and the Jarvan. And I do think that with the amount of mobility on the side of G2, a lot of it can be interrupted from the side of Poppy. So I'm kind of expecting another 1-3-1, maybe a 1-4 coming out from the side of G2. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a very similar game plan to what we saw in game 1.
Yeah, similar game plan, but the key difference for me is the Ryze pick that Origin banned away, because no longer will you have Caps going into a side lane and breaking all of your turrets, going for the backdoor, blowing up your inhibitors. That will not be how G2 win this game. Instead, it relies a lot more on the skirmishing that we know they were able to do so well early on in the split.
Definitely worked out for them in the first half of the split. Not too much in the second half. They did lose 4 of their last 5 games, but back to winning ways in this matchup versus Origin. Origin perhaps, well, they want to show us the same stuff in the early game, and then they just want to show us a little bit more proactivity. Maybe just a little bit more willingness to pull the trigger, because we never really saw an engage with the Jarvan Galio until way into that game.
Yeah, and we heard it from the analyst desk. I do think the Origin could have been a little bit more proactive with their composition, but it's one of those eternal debates where it's like, if you engage, what happens to the side lane, right? You know, what do you lose in exchange for that? So either way, Origin going to come refreshed, revitalized into game 2. Let's see how they can handle the pressure from G2.
Summoner's Rift. Seconds until minions spawn.
Beware a man with nothing to lose.
Read him up, but Mickey comes across the wall there and knockback. Mythy, lots of damage coming down. There's the Ignite as well. They're continuing on the chase. They get first blood. And G2 with a perfect collapse will strike first.
It's a beautiful level 1 setup there from G2, because they have so many tools to work with. Not only was it Mickey X on the flank, but Swain can very easily take the Never move at level 1, and you have access to the passive on Swain, which is so strong, using that pullback off of any CC, which let them get not just the first blood, but both summoner spells off of Mythy.
And now they can look to play around the bot side of the map once again. Rakan, very easy to set up these plays. Even after the nerfs to his W, can still be very obnoxious to deal with in the laning phase. And Jankos, the only issue is Rek'Sai level 2 ganks, arguably not the strongest ender.
Also, Jankos went back to base. So he recalled. He has a long sword currently because he got 400 gold off of that first blood. Now his early pathing will be slightly delayed. So the level 3 point that you really look to on the Rek'Sai before you can make that first big play will not come that fast.
Could try and fight Cold around the Scuttle Crab, though, if he wants to. His level 2 is pathing down towards the bottom side of the map. Now we'll realize that Cold is on it. Does have the smite available. Cold doesn't have a smite of his own, so Jankos could just walk up to this, but because Nukeduck can come down from mid just a little bit quicker, he didn't want to risk it.
When is Jankos going to realize that in Rek'Sai versus Jarvan matchup, you can't contest the crab at level 2? Once again, he's going to lose both Scuttle Crabs, even though he got first blood and has a longsword up on the J4.
Whoops, another oopsie there from Jankos. Early pathing going to go in favor of Cold. I wonder if he'll look to invade enemy topside, because he has good information that Jankos will be on the Krugs, but obviously there is the risk of getting collapsed on by Wonder and Caps. But I wonder if he's really afraid of that. You can see he's already moving into the enemy jungle. He doesn't have a vision, or a trinket rather.
There no, the blue buff is up as he spots it out with his eyes. Don't need a trinket to see that one, and has the flash still available, of course. Looks like Jankos just going to do his Razor Beaks. Maybe not expecting Cold to go for this invade after he was spotted out on a ward, but Cold will actually get what looks to be a 3 buff here versus the G2 jungler.
Yeah, of course, Jankos won't be too sad about losing the blue buff or the actual stats that it does give him, but the experience going to be nice for Cold to try to shut him down. Now, Cold is currently pathing around towards this top side. Nukeduck is on the way as well. He used the claw to get over the wall, and they want the dive.
Flawless Duet was used there by Wonder as well, so there's no stun possibility. Cold going in for the dive here. Wonder, teleport comes in straight away. There's the Steadfast Presence already. Wonder down. Now the TP can't be cancelled, of course, but Jankos is on the flank. Vision Vampire comes down. Now 5 flashes across the wall. Jankos down to about half HP, but already Cold's done. Jankos underneath the tower. The hammer into the back of Jankos will secure it. There's the TP coming in from Perks now. He's going to join the fight
that's
towards the top
Wonder.
side. It's Wonder coming back in instead. Perks still down towards the bottom side. The Claw gets Nuke Duck away for the moment, still has the flash.
He has the flash if he wants to look for it. No mana on towards Nuke Duck, but they do get out in the end. It started as such a clean turret dive there from Origin, but the early damage of Jankos' Rek'Sai as well as the turret coming through is able to turn it around.
Yeah, I love the play from Origin. As you said, I thought it was very clean. Note how Alfari is the one to kick things off by landing the stun into the turret. This means that the follow-up CC, there's very little that can be done. And you'll see that he also gets interrupted. Oh, we have another gank in mid.
Nuke Duck's already used the flash here as well. Caps on the chase. Jankos there with the Prey Seeker. One more auto will be enough, and Caps puts down the Claw, secures the kill.
He just TP'd back into lane 2. That is brutal, but look topside. Wonder has the flash if he wants to get out.
Cold holding onto the EQ combo here, waiting for Wonder to flash. He'll flash underneath the tower, and Cold will not dive any further. But Wonder forced away, doesn't have teleport to get back to this lane.
You wanted proactivity, Vedius. I think we got it.
We're going to get another dive.
Jankos looking for another pair. Remember, Mythy still has no flash.
And he used the tunnel. Mythy, no flash. There is an exhaust available as well.
a big
Jankos
wave,
waiting.
though.
He's waiting. As you say, a big wave. Very impactful early on. Jankos coming in. Doesn't have the flash. Will land the knock-up only onto Mythy. Mickey with the chase in. Thick skin from Mythy will keep him alive for the moment. The Ignite is ticking away. Mickey tanking up the tower. Perks gets the kill. And a perfectly executed dive there by G2.
And this is the early game that G2 fans wanted to see from Jankos. He couldn't have that much impact in game 1, but this time around he saw Cold head towards the top side of the map. He saw his top laner lose his flash, and that gives him the information needed to know that he can make this play bot happen. And remember, Mythy had no flash from the level 1 play. It was still on cooldown, and while G2 did have to expend a couple of summoner spells to get it, they find themselves another advantage in the early game.
And it was what we were waiting for G2 to do, right? Because in the last game, they wanted to play around bottom side. It didn't really work out, so the game stalled for a long time until they were eventually able to close it with smart macro play. This time around, Jankos was able to make that first gank in the bottom lane land true and has put his team in a very good position.
Now, the big advantage for Origin right now is the fact that their top laner is 18 CS ahead. He has 2 levels over his lane opponent, and he actually set up a really strong freeze towards his side of the map, which meant that Wonder was zoned away from so much early experience and gold. But we see another play in the mid lane.
Nuke Duck's just going to claw away here. Mickey doesn't have the chase possibility. Let's go back up towards that top lane though, Vedius.
But with regards to this matchup right now, you've got to remember that Wonder, during the regular season, he has been one of the most dominant players that we have in our league. Now, while the second half, many argued that Cabo was the best performing top laner, I think that what Wonder demonstrated was that in that G2 Fnatic game, when you put him on a carry, this man likes to carry. And in a game where he's playing this Aurelia, it's very important that you are relevant come the mid game and you can become the split pushing threat. And the fact that he has this deficit will make it much harder for him to do that.
Certainly will. Also, you do need the items on the Aurelia before you can out-sustain the Poppy in the side lane. Trinity Force, as well as probably a Tiamat upgrade, going to be very important because Poppy, one of her biggest strengths is she can just shut you down. She goes for very early armor in the matchup. You see her do this all the time against champions like Fiora or the Aurelia. Bramblefest right off the bat because you know Aurelia's going to be healing off of her Q as well as the Conqueror. And it's going to make the side laning much more difficult for Wonder for a while.
Although there is an advantage for Origin in the top lane, it's echoed in the bottom lane in the form of Perks being 15 to 20 CS up on average, 1-0-1 already on the Sire, building up towards that Essence Reaver.
Going to be very strong down there. Now, Jankos coming bottom lane, walked over 2 wards, by the way, because the champion's blind. He's underground, can't see anything.
She's blind.
Yes, correct. Cold not looking for the counter gank there. He pinged his bottom lane 2 back away very smartly because the 3v3 probably doesn't look too good for Origin side on this bottom side. Right now, Perks especially hitting level 6, and with the 20 CS advantage is going to be a big deal.
Jankos will realize now that he is on a control ward as he starts up the Ocean Drake. Not an Infernal that we saw fought over in the last game. Ocean, very powerful early on, of course, giving you all of that extra mana and health regen, but not something Origin are too worried about fighting over.
Yeah, I don't think they can afford to fight over it right now anyway. Their bot lane is at a pretty big deficit. Their mid laner, he doesn't have flash right now, and he's almost dying. He has to show respect here to Caps.
Alfari is on his way down. Cold was just around the corner as well, but they decide not to go for it. There is about 1,000 gold lead already for G2, only 8 minutes in. A lot of that will be coming through that bottom lane advantage, and of course, the extra couple of kills.
Lethal tempo on Perks there, coming in handy as they go for these early trades. If he was able to land that I think it's
Blade caller?
Blade caller. I knew it was something caller, but we have a root caller, a feather caller, all kinds of callers.
We don't have a feather caller, but I'll let you get away with it.
All right.
You have a Feather Storm.
Feather Storm. There you go. There's too many. It should just be Q, E, W, and R. That's just the reality of it.
Stick to analyzing. You're better at it.
What I can see right now is that Perks have priority bots, so they're going to be able to go back. Perks should be able to complete his first item 9 minutes into the game. And they think they've set up a trap, but unfortunately they are standing on a ward right now.
It's not the sneakiest of traps that I have ever seen.
But they think they're being sneaky.
Exactly, exactly. Origin should just be safe here. Maybe?
I mean, the minions are going to walk towards them. They'll.
Here we go. Oh, no!
But how did they know?
You can see here, though, at the moment, there's a little bit of a fight around that blue phase coming in. There's the Vanguard's edge as well. Alfari coming in from the side as well. Patrick teleporting down towards the bottom lane. Wonder caught out on the back. Cataclysm comes out from Cold as well. They're trying to take down Jankos down towards the bottom side of the fight as Patrick joins the Barney. There's the Demonic Ascension coming out from Caps. He's so healthy already, but the flash away from the nether move from Patrick. Caps pops, but he gets popped. It's a shutdown for Origin.
It's a fantastic TP there from Patrick as well, using the ult onto Jankos. Jankos popped up and couldn't get the knock-up because he was rooted in place. Patrick is the hero for OG in that fight.
He also turned it into a numbers advantage, and in the 3 versus 3, this could have gone horribly wrong for Origin, but they knew that they had the teleport. They know that this play is safe, and while initially Wonder gets to this play first, and you think, this is looking bad, a good flash in from Caps is what kicks off the fight, and then the immediate teleport ward in, and keep your eyes on Varus. This is what Endo was talking about. The ulti onto Rek'Sai means that he can't get that knock-up, he can't threaten anyone in the fight, and Jankos drops, resulting in a 2 versus 4 that OG end up coming out on top of.
And at level 6 with the Halo Blades, Rek'Sai would just blow Patrick up if that ult did not connect. Now mid lane, we did see Mickey using the ultimate and his flash to find the engage. That did not land here for G2, so this is making me feel very much like the G2 that went 9-0 at the start of the split with just how fast and forward they're trying to play this game.
So 10 minutes in, about 500 gold between the two teams. G2 in the advantage. CS lead for Alfari in the top lane, but it's matched by Perks' lead down towards that bottom side.
And he's going to lose even more on the side of Patrick, rather, because of the plates that also went down in favor of Perks. Note how he is level 8 to the level 6 of Patrick. Also note how just a second ago, Cold was level 6 to the level 7 of Jankos, whereas Alfari is level 9 to the level 8 of Wonder. So like, you can clearly see where Origin and G2 have their respective advantages, and now they need to try and play around these leads. And that's why you're seeing Origin try and make a lot of these plays towards the top side of the map, whereas G2, they're trying to snowball Perks and Mickey even more.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things we looked at when we saw the first half or second half of the split for G2 was where Jankos was investing his resources. Because when G2 were dominating the league, he actually spent a lot of time around the bottom side of the map, which is maybe a little surprising because Wonder is one of G2's top performers on this roster. This game, he's playing towards the weak side a little bit, and this could be bad.
Alfari gets a knock into the wall. Mickey's dunked. That is a very roast chicken. The Chain of Corruption still going to land on towards Jankos. He'll flash away, but that's his Summoner spell burnt. And Origin continuing to play around this blue buff.
And playing around the top side of the map. This time, though, they brought the entire family. They used the Tahm Kench ultimate to dive onto the backside, and they were able to lock down Mickey, who is just trying to clear a control ward. Origin have now equalized the kill score and demonstrated that they can match G2 in the early game, just like they did in Game 1, and that they can hold their own against the first seed at the end of the regular season.
Yeah, and they're on a great timing here to pick up this Rift Herald with pressure in the top lane, mid lane as well. They can decide where they want to put that down to try and crack a tower to get the plate money. Get some more control here. Jankos has something to say about it, though.
Yeah, Nukeduck has the flank position here. Jankos no flash. Will pop the Void Rush onto Nukeduck. The charm comes out as well, roots them up in the place. Caps is on the other side of the wall and can't join the fight. But maybe he's going in as the Vanguard's edge comes out. The Keeper's verdict. Not gonna connect. A great stun. Nukeduck is down from Perks. Mithy chased off towards the top side. Wonder gets another kill. And G2 were able to find the perfect fight in their own jungle. Now Patrick has to get away. Mithy chasing onto Mickey. Licks him out. Spits out Perks as well. Isn't gonna quite have enough damage. And Perks will take down his former support.
Ooh, big team fight in favor of G2 this time around, but you have to give props to Wonder in that fight. He landed such a crucial stun onto multiple members to help swing the fight in the favor of Alfari. So observers, please, when we get into the replay, give us that slow-mo, give us that zoom in on Wonder, because if he didn't interrupt that Alfari ultimate, that could have been a one-team fight for Origin.
It definitely could have. His engage at the start as well, flashing over the wall to throw down the ultimate to CC them inside of that corridor was absolutely great to watch.
And he's really mitigated that disadvantage up towards the top lane as well. They're within 5 or 6 CS, while bot side, there's a 40 CS lead for Perks. He's 3-0-1 on this Xayah now, in such a strong position when these teamfights do kick off.
Big damage down onto Perks right there, and it's funny because after that game 1, we were thinking, is this going to be just a huge series with super long games, or are these teams going to make changes coming into the match? And I was thinking to myself, you know, usually after you have just a smackdown of a game where it goes 50 minutes, the next game gets a lot faster because neither team wants to be in that stressful situation ever again. You can see Jankos walks in here initially, and it does look bad, but a key thing to note is he uses his own ultimate to actually mitigate the CC from Lissandra ult. Lissandra ult goes to animation and becomes unstoppable and tracks it through. So he delays the engage, and then you see the TP to the tunnel on the other side. Ult flash to get the immediate CC, then 3-man stun onto the front line here, including Patrick. It's huge.
Wonder caught out here, gobbled up by Mythy. Now Fari should be able to get the final auto attack down. He will go out, and Origin find another kill. 4 plates to 1 in favor of G2. You can see actually Origin weren't even able to pick up the gold from the plate they did acquire.
So a bit of an overextension in the bot side from Wonder. He wasn't expecting Mythy's ultimate to show up, turning it into a 2 versus 1. But G2 right now hold on to the gold lead, 25.4 to 24.5. Still a very close game once again. I kind of wanted to think at Ender about, like, what are the next steps from here? What are we kind of looking at in terms of where the teams are looking to play? Because something we talked about for G2 is it is once again very much the 1-3-1 style. They have the Swain and they have the Irelia, so they're able to play on these side lanes and help out on this 1 versus 1. And for Origin, again, they have a little bit more of the team fight-esque. So how will they try and set these things up, and how will they look to try and get back at G2?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things coming into the 15-minute mark now with objectives on both sides, turrets, you have the Ocean Drake as well as the Rift Herald, is who is actually in the mid lane. And right now, because G2 have such a big advantage between Perks and Mickey, he's actually just 1v2 right here, walking up and pushing the wave. So G2, for the foreseeable future, are going to have permanent mid lane priority, which makes it much easier to either make plays on the sides or look for either of these objectives, because it will be OG with Patrick and Mythy showing up a little late to those engagements.
And one of the things I think that G2 could look to play for is this Rift Herald. We can already see that it started off, but one of the things that they'd set up beforehand was this vision control throughout the river, and it ties back into what you were talking about. And they had priority mid, they had priority top, and they just cleared out all these wards so that this area of the map is completely invisible to Origin. Thank you, observers, for helping us illustrate that. As you can see that now this should be a free Rift Herald, and now this means that breaking that mid-tier 1 becomes a lot easier for the side of G2.
You see Cold trying to answer with an Ocean Drake for themselves. Will match up against G2's Ocean Drake they've already taken, but as you say, the Rift Herald can open up those towers pretty well. In terms of itemization, we are sitting on a Rod of Ages already stacking up 4 caps. He's at 3 stacks. Protobell was just finished in the mid lane as well. Perks has to pop the ultimate to get away. Mickey eats up an arrow to the back, but they will be able to escape. Mickey still has the flank position here with a flash and quickness if he wants to go in, but it would be a outnumbered fight if they did engage.
Yeah, in the meantime, G2 have Jankos positioned around top lane. He just actually reset, knowing that the rest of Origin is around the mid, because they get that top lane tower for free because they were able to absorb the engage from OG.
So have a look at the minimap right now. You'll notice that this is exactly what Origin did last time. They send multiple members towards an area of the map so they can guarantee either control or an objective. But this leaves room for Caps to just solo up in the top side of the map. Now the difference is very much this Rise pick that isn't available for G2, but also the lack of teleport on Caps right now. He's running the Unsealed Spellbook. He's swapped over for Cleanse for the time being. And now he's actually grabbed himself an Exhaust as well, while his Flash and TP are on cooldown, which means the Origin don't actually get punished for this, and they can even use Tahm Kenshin's ultimate to then move back up to the top side of the map, catch the wave, and now they can start grouping up mid and sieging onto this tower.
Yeah, I think OG are ideally looking to find someone out of place on G2's side, because they have a lot of individual pick potential with this team composition. You also have the Tahm Kench ultimate as well to try and collapse on a side lane and find a kill onto a member like Wonder, which we've already seen them do. That's what OG are trying to do by running around with multiple members, whereas G2, because they picked up the Rift Herald, now have a lot of people focused around this mid lane to try and break that.
I actually really like this Rift Herald timing, because Alfari was heading down towards bot to stop Wonder, but Wonder's going to get a free tower here because he had to come back and answer the Rift Herald push. They won't get mid, but they will get bot tower out of this.
So again, good map play from the side of G2. by effectively creating a distraction in the mid lane, it then opened up Wonder to take this tower.
Ooh, shiny thing over here.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess it's better to say a point of pressure, right? You know, like they're attacking this point, and then you leave a point of weakness elsewhere, which they then use one of their side laners to attack. And again, like we've said a lot so far in these first 2 games, but I really want to reinforce that that is what G2 is very good at. They're very creative in how they create like a focal point. They say, this is what you need to focus on. Pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. The moment you look, before you know it, something behind you has happened, and you're suddenly at a deficit. And that's what makes them so scary to play against, because on paper, Origin is doing a lot of the right steps. They're taking their time, they're playing around their win conditions, but whenever they set up to do what their team needs, something creative, something unexpected is happening that gets in their way.
Exactly. Often for G2, it's about just increasing the tempo of the game, whether that's just like throwing so many fights at you that you're bound to make a mistake eventually, because the thought process for them is, well, Origin are this slow, calculated team where they need to see what's going on the map, then make a decision around that, and then act on that decision. G2 are just acting. So Origin are still trying to assess
making it up on the
what's
fly,
going
do you know what I mean?
No, legitimately. And what it means that Origin are still stuck in this planning phase where they don't get to take all the information, and instead they just must respond immediately. And that's where teams tend to make mistakes, and that's how they really exploited a lot of the teams in the LEC early on.
Our mid lane tower will fall for G2 as we come up towards the 20-minute mark. Once again, they have a 1,500 gold lead. Feels very reminiscent of game 1. They seem to just be pulling Origin around the map, but Origin have the superior team fighting team, so maybe just waiting for another item, another half an item on some of their carries before they can group up.
Let's also not forget where those advantages came from, and this is a great time to bring up this graphic. You can see that Perkz and Caps built up very strong leads during the laning phase, and Nukeduck, he stayed relatively even with Caps, but Caps has built up a little bit more of a lead because he's been going off into the side lane, but who really had the gold advantage was Alfari up in the top side. The problem is that Wonder has started to close that gap, whereas Patrick has not. And you can see how there is still a 2,000 deficit between those 2 carries, whereas Wonder is getting more and more gold and is starting to catch up to Alfari and should be more relevant as we approach the mid game.
And we praised G2 in game 1 for their lane assignments, how they were playing a 1-3-1 or a 1-4. It seems to be working out incredibly well for them again this game. They just seem to find more CS, more gold on the map than other teams. And now we'll see Jankos coming up towards the top lane as Caps was just playing defensive here. Nukeduck backed away. And for the moment, no action will occur.
So the struggle that OG has right now is they really want to break this mid-tier 1, but because of how strong Perkz is, G2 is always getting pressure, so they need to force a fight, which is what Cole tried to do there, but unfortunately they couldn't get that commitment. Remember, Perkz still has his ultimate available, and if they don't find that initial pick, if they don't get that land onto the carry, then it could go very wrong for Origin.
Yeah, both teams are trying to make something happen around the mid lane, but neither are able to find their mark. So let's talk team fights, and specifically I want to focus in on Cold, because this is not the same style of Jarvan that we saw in game 1 that was about the Conqueror with the full tank approach to be a frontline for the team. Instead, it's Electrocute with the Warrior enchant first. Now, he is 0-3, so he's not going to have as big of an impact in these fights as you perhaps would have liked to, but it gives you this idea that Origin are maybe looking for faster team fights where they explode into your backline with the Lysandre burst and the Jarvan layered on top of each other. Then you have the consistent DPS of Patrick to back it up, but ultimately they're looking for the big burst right at the start, whereas G2, you see picks like the Swain and the Aurelia that really value more extended fights where they can make full use of the sustain in their kits.
And we'll keep our eyes on that as the game does progress. For now, it looks like G2 are just going to go for the Cloud Drake as Jankos sets up down towards that. And while we have a brief moment, a brief pause in the action, I do want to just remind people about how storied both of these teams are in the history of Europe. G2, 4 LEC titles, started winning as soon as they joined the league, have been in 5 finals, they've been in 7 consecutive playoffs, and have gone to Worlds 3 times, making the semi-finals last year, of course. Origin, on the other hand, although they are a massive brand, although they are known throughout all of Europe, have only ever made it to 2 playoffs. Yes, they made finals both times, but last time they lost 1-3 to G2. And although they have made World semi-finals, it was a long time ago.
It certainly was. It's quite interesting because of how popular Origin as a brand is. And when you think about it, like their actual success has been very limited, but they had such an impressive year.
Chain of Corruption was used. Perkz still has the ultimate here, just holding on to it.
But because they had such an impressive year, just like so many fans got behind them, and it helped that they had a lot of members from Fnatic, the original, you know. But now they're looking to change things around as they make a play down towards the bot side.
There's no chain of corruption on Patrick, so they can't lock Wonder in place. He did have to use the flash to get away. G2 trying to get mid-prio because they know that the Tom Kench is down towards the bottom lane. But it looks like Origin actually might keep 3 players down there and go for the push on this inhib tower.
Yeah, so this game, it's Origin with the global pressure, but the key difference is that they have to commit 2 or 3 members to a lane, which means that you can't actually respond with a 4v5 on the other side. There's also not a teleport on a player like a Tom Kench to react after making that move towards bottom. Mithy will have to eat up Patrick and get him on out of there. So we'll see that Origin can try to make these plays in the side lanes, but they can't commit like Caps was last game on the Rise. It has to be in and out.
24 minutes in, there's about 1,000 gold between the two teams. We are seeing 2 items now complete as well. Patrick has finished the Ginsu's on the Varus, so it is that on-hit Varus that we usually see. Lethality Varus, a long time in the past, of course. 2 items on perks as well with the Essence Reaver, building up towards that Infinity Edge next, you have to think, on the Xayah. Will have a lot of damage if he can get those feathers off in these team fights.
I mean, what still impresses me is that Perks is currently level 14 as an AD carry. Not very common. Usually they are a little bit behind in terms of experience, but the fact that they have 2 levels over the jungler and he has a level over Nukeduck.
That's insane.
Perks is going to be quite the scary carry this game, and I feel like it comes back to a point you made earlier, Endo, where because of how far ahead he was, he's been 1v2ing the mid lane and still gaining priority, and because he's on Xayah, he still plays relatively safe, so he's a big threat right now, and he has just completed his 3rd item. So now I wouldn't be surprised if we saw G2 look to try and start some fights. While we do talk a lot about their ability to 1-3-1, Swain, Rakan, Irelia, all still very potent team fighters. It's just about how you set up that team fight. You need to be the one finding the engagement, finding the flank. And ideally, you'd have a choke point so that it's easier for you to... Actually, do I want more of a choke point with an Irelia? I guess if you have more mobility dancing around the fight, especially against a Poppy, do you really want to be in that narrow corridor?
Yeah, I think it's hard with the Poppy, the Jarvan and Lissandra, and even the Varus ultimate create so many zones.
That's true.
Here that
Avoid
they can
choke
really
points.
use their voice. Yeah. So let's rethink that. Avoid the choke points.
If they win a choke point fight, though, we'll say you a prediction god.
But here's the thing. OG are starting up the Baron. G2, I think, would like to have a spread out fight. They might not get it if they have to force themselves into the pit.
9,000 HP left on the Baron. G2 trying to answer. Perks on his way across.
Slow.
Very slow. Alfari will get the knock into the wall, pops down the Steadfast Presence. They get Mickey, they get the pick. And now it's a 4v5 in favor of Origin. Nukeduck on the chase, onto Perks. Flashes in with the Ring of Frost. Tom Kench comes in from behind as well. Perks will flash away. And Origin unable to find another pick, but do get the summoners out of the Xayah.
So now with the numbers advantage, Origin will try to use this to secure the mid tower. But fun fact, while the Baron was going off, G2 were gaining mid priority. And you can see that this wave wasn't here in time, which means that they weren't able to siege onto this tower.
Yeah, and OG would have to act fast if they wanted to start up the Baron because Mickey's going to be spawning in 5 seconds, and he has home guards. Now, look where Nukeduck is. He has no flash, but he's in the fog of war. He could look to start the fight inside of the corridor.
Cold on a ward, chased away by Jankos. Nukeduck now slipped behind G2. They're coming in from across towards the blue buff. Mickey on his way to join the fight. 6,000 HP on the Baron. Jankos getting in. He's stolen the Elder Drake in the last game. Could make another steal here. Caps stepping forward, uses the Never Move, pulls back Mithy, knocked away with the Keeper's Verdict. Then Cole jumps in onto Jankos, but he goes golden, and the rest of G2 can react. Mickey coming in as well. He jumps onto the backline. Nukeduck uses his stopwatch just in time. The Frozen Tomb actually used there. Mithy will spin out Patrick. Perks on a rampage. Wonder jumping onto the backline. That's 2 kills to him. Just needs the final swipe with the blade, and now Origin have to run for the hills. Alfari can knock back Wonder towards his minion wave, but the flawless duet will stun up Cold. He'll dodge away with the EQ combo. A Steadfast Presence will stop him for the moment. Jankos does not have the ultimate, so can't jump onto the backline. Alfari, once again, acting as the bouncer, pulled back with the Never Move, and Caps can tank this for days. Alfari goes golden for the moment as he stops time. Not knocked up, he's still alive. Somehow he'll get the shield from the buffer. The Never Move will pull him back, and eventually Caps says, screw this, I'm gonna use the ultimate, and shuts down Alfari.
Oh, Alfari doing everything he could to stay alive, but no. G2 kept OG around the Baron for long enough. The fight was turned by Origin. They're now trying to teleport in and stop it. They have the Tom Kench too. Can they get a fight?
The Baron goes down, the quickness used. Patrick caught out on the backline. Vision of Empire comes out as well. Perks just trying to retreat. The feathers pulled back. Nukeduck chasing him out. Caps now joins the fight as the Never Move does not connect, but they force away Origin. That's all they wanted to do. because they still have that Baron buff. The channel comes out. Mickey caught up in the knock-up from the EQ. The chase out. Mickey unable to get there in time. Cold will
coming
stop
back in.
time. The teleport coming back in as G2 want more.
The other teleport.
Perks has joined it in as well. Caps on a killing spree. He's 616. And Origin are now the team to turn and flee as G2 will chase them down. You have to think there's no hope left for Origin. Nuke Duck getting in from the side. Patrick get eaten up by Mithy, but the chase is still on. Mickey will jump across the wall. Jankos now on the back of the fight. G2 still going. They're looking for it.
G2 just do not want to stop. They are unrelenting. Patrick has nowhere to go. Alfari gets caught out on the top side as well.
Patrick
this just
is
will
done.
not end.
Alfari using the steadfast presence, but still will get knocked up. Jankos on the chase onto Nuke Duck, who uses the proto belt. The keeper's verdict knocks by 3. And Alfari may have kept himself alive for the moment, but G2 got everything out of that fight.
Woo! That was a long team fight while Medic catches his breath. Let's try and recap this one, Ender, because it all starts off with Origin actually starting the Baron. Unfortunately, they put themselves in the choke point themselves, and that gives the freedom for Swain to walk up and start off this fight. Now, they think, okay, Origin, we can just turn and fight onto Wonder and Jankos, but unfortunately, they buy so much time that they actually hold out in a 1 versus 4. So the other 3 members of G2 are just surviving against the Lissandra, and they're like, well, we're happy. We can actually turn this one around. They've taken so much damage from the Baron, combined from really good Aurelia play from Wonder, means that G2 end up coming off the initial fight very far ahead.
And when we saw Wonder put so far behind in the early game, we said he needs to be relevant in the mid game. Well, that is very relevant. 4-2-4 now has the Trinity Force already completed, has the Titanic Hydra as well. He's doing a huge amount of work. You just can't discount this man. He is such a strong top laner, and he proves it time after time. Now G2 pushing in for these towers. 6th tower of the game will go to them. They have a 7,000 gold lead after it was neck and neck just minutes ago, and they're looking to break open this inhibitor line. Already they have the inhib tower down. Mickey coming to join his team, but they don't even need him. They'll get this inhibitor pretty much for free.
G2 can just brute force their way in, and unless Origin are willing to pull the trigger and fight, structure after structure will fall. The first bits of the base are broken open here on the side of G2, and the mid lane inhib tower is already at 50%. Seems like they're going to be able to get so much off of just 1 more minute of Baron buff.
G2, I think a lot of this game has come off the fact that Perks was just so strong early on into the game. No, again, he is the same level as Caps and Wonder. You know, like...
He's 2 levels over Nuke Duck.
It's actually crazy how strong he is right now on this Zyre. And while he's not rolling in kills and like snowballing the gold, he's just been so relevant in keeping mid control and allowing G2 to control the top side of the map to help turn this Baron in their favor and ultimately break into the base of Origin.
Yeah, he also got the QSS, so it's so much harder to dive him. The turret goes down, and the Keeper's Verdict has already been used by Alfari. They're not going to pull the trigger. They're just going to lose another.
First super minion wave pushing in that bot lane as well. Wonder jumping forward onto Nuke Duck. He does have the Frozen Tomb if he wants to keep himself alive, but with the minion waves pushing in, there's a super minion wave here. There's double cannon as well. That first Nexus tower is the target. Nuke Duck forced away, has to use the ultimate on himself, and now G2 take the first Nexus tower. Nuke Duck gobbled up by Mithy, but they're just going to spit him out back onto the fountain, and G2 are chasing them all the way back into their base. G2 will look for the second Nexus tower. They'll take it pretty cleanly. Alfari trying to jump in, but the quickness is still there, and G2 have all the tools for the team fight. They take 2, they take 3, they take it, sodding all, and they'll get the triple kill for Aurelia. G2 are 1 game away from finals in Rotterdam.
It was once again a very close early game. Both teams going back and forth. Origin investing all their resources in the top side of the map, G2 investing towards the bot side. Unfortunately, Origin could not convert the Alfari lead into a snowball, and it got into this mid-game point where they couldn't break that mid-tier 1, and because they couldn't get through that structure, they couldn't make any plays. They tried to force something around the Baron, and ultimately G2 came out ahead in that ensuing Baron fight.
And the hero wonder of this game, whether it was the brawl around the blue buff where he flashed over the wall, got the massive ult, the massive stun, or the team fights at the end around the Baron buff after being punished so much in lane with an early game tower dive, he was the hero for G2 in this second match.
And I mean, it's crazy to think, right, because Caps was 7-1 and 11, right? It was just like he was coming in, he was doing the damage, he was cleaning up fights, but it was the way in which they were turning those fights around off the back of Wonder. And props to Jankos as well. Yeah. His use of the ultimate, the amount of time that he was buying. Often when the fight started, he was always the guy that they were diving onto, but then he would just buy enough time for the rest of his team to reposition, and then they could turn the fight into their favor.
Yeah, but now think about the mental here of Origin. Game 1, fully in their control. They lose to a base race. Game 2, they get just blasted out of the water. They made a bad call around Baron and died for it. Now they're down 2 games against the best team in the league. How do you come back from that?
And that call felt desperate at times as well. TPing in when
Oh,
the Baron
yeah.
was already down. It felt a little bit like Origin were just grasping at straws, but only one win is standing between G2 and a spot in the final. We're stepping away, but fear not. We'll be back for match point in a few minutes. Thank you very much, Shocks. As a reminder, if you want to watch G2 Origin and Fnatic fight for the title next week, you can get your tickets right now at eu.lolesports.com/Rotterdam. Remember, that Saturday match means something now. It's no longer just a third place decider. It decides who goes through to the final on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, the loser today will go up to face Fnatic to have that right to contest again on that finals match to see who wins the split, to see who goes to MSI. But here, we're not there yet.
Exactly
this is
that.
do or die.
Exactly that, Ender. So let's focus in on this draft. First things first is to note that Origin have once again selected red side. That means that the Ryze will likely be taken off the board once again. Silas, Kale, likely to follow suit. The question is, will OG make the shift up in the bans, or will they stick to what has they've gone with so far in the series?
There's a lot of different options for them as we jump on into the picks and bans. Now, I think if you're Origin, the question is, how do you change? You know, what do you alter to really get those wins under the board? Because at the moment, you need a reverse sweep to make it straight through to the finals.
Yeah, I think the changes won't necessarily come in what they ban here. I think they've had some pretty solid bans so far, and even their drafts have been okay. But for me, it's how they play in the game, how quickly they're able to force action. And if they are going to change something up, it would be to see if they can play around some more lanes, especially the bottom side of the map, which got left out to dry in game number 2. Perkz absolutely ran over Patrick.
So, I'm going to take gamble and say Rek'Sai first pick, insta-lock.
Oh.
Whoa!
Oh, here we go. Oh, Vedios prediction king.
So, I'm then going to say Lissandra Jarvan as the next two. What? I'm then going to say
How did
Zyra
you
Khan.
know?
I'm going to say Zyra Khan. I'm just going to throw it out there,
This is the
guys.
only risky one, in my opinion. This is the only place I think, are they still going to go Zyra Khan? But if you get this right, Vedios, you are truly the superior analyst of this
It's not like they ran
phase.
this draft before.
So maybe an Akali ban next for Origin?
No,
Well,
but hit me up. like-
They're literally doing the same thing.
So they picked the Tom Kench. Hit me with some thoughts here, though, because this did not work for Origin in game 1.
I actually am not a huge fan of the Tom Kench here. I'd have rather seen them take something. that can
But here's the
test
shift
more in
up. Here's the
2v2.
change.
Oh. The Aurelia ban here, removing that from Wonder, even though they had counterpick for top lane last game, and Alfari wasn't a good matchup where he was able to dominate. Specifically for me, what I'm looking at now for Origin is a really strong top lane pick they can play around. Not a Poppy, because Poppy, she can win lane, but in team fights, not going to have that same level impact that you would like. I need Alfari on something that can deal damage, because with a Tom Kench pick, you are not playing for Patrick in this game.
Well, there's the Akali ban as well coming out from Origin once again. We do, as you say, see the Corki left available, which Origin banned last time we went through this draft. Zed removed by G2. They also banned away the Ezreal on this phase. And instead, it's going to be the Jace getting taken out.
Looking at a Hecarim priority once again for the side of G2. I wonder if Origin will take it away. They won't. They're immediately going to lock in the AD carry, and they want to try and give Alfari the counter pick towards topside. Now remember that things like the cannon are still up and available, so locking in a Hecarim is a little riskier, but with Jace, Aurelia, and Akali all gone, I think that it's still a relatively safe blind pick.
Now, one of their bans, Origin's ban specifically in Game 2, was the Corki. It now does get locked in for caps here. So once again, it's going to be G2 with heavy scaling. By running double marksman, especially caps on this Corki, you are going to be able to teamfight very strongly as you move in towards your second and especially third item power spikes.
All you really want is a bit of a front line to stand in front of those double marksmen. So you've already got the Rek'Sai, who can, of course, go tanky. The Gangplank feels a little bit out of sorts there, but it will be locked in by G2. It's an okay blind pick towards that top lane.
I mean, we've seen a lot of champions really dumpster it, and the thing is that you can lose gracefully on the pick, and you go down significantly in CS, but still be relevant. Bwipo is the best example of that, and by banning away champions like the Jace, you try to remove some counter matchups, but ultimately, Gangplank is always going to struggle against ranged champions. Whether or not that's the Swain or the Lissandra, both of them can easily clear out his barrels and threaten all-ins if a jungler is coming up there as well.
One of the things I will say about the Gangplank is he does help when playing around bot lane. His ultimate is a great contributor in setting up for dives, and you've also got the package on Corki. So this to me implies that Cats will be roaming around the map a lot, and that their primary goal will be to try and get the bot side of the map ahead, just like they did last game. Whereas for Origin, I think once again we're looking at these team fights, and it begs the question of Origin need to change up their ability to force these fights in this game, because one of the issues they've had so far in the series is the willingness to pull the trigger, the willingness to maybe take a fight that isn't 70-30 and actually go for a fight where you can get those outplays in.
And I like seeing this from Alphari. He's returning to the Swain. Last year, I remember when Swain was a big pick, he played a lot of it in the top lane. In game number 2, he played so well on the pop. He got so much attention from his team as well. We will see a repeat of that in this game, I truly believe, but it has to be different for Origin. They have to be able to turn their lane advantages on the top side, if they choose to play there, into much more around the rest of the map.
You've got to translate if you're Origin. Do or die. We're going to hand over to a quick interview. Law is backstage.
So I'm confused.
So I'm not. There was a New York Times article that came out this week talking about Origin and their training strategies. And they said, we got rid of some of the pizza and we added more yoga into our routines and it worked out well for us. That's where that comes from Carlos. To bring it back to a more somber note for Origin, it's do or die. They have to reverse sweep G2 if they're going to make it straight through to the finals. Otherwise, they will face Fnatic next week.
Watch Mickey X here. They did this last game where he took W and snuck around. Alphari's playing a little aggressive. They have Gangplank. Now, they don't have the Swain they had last game, so it's less CC. I don't think they can get a kill, but they could look to burn an early flash.
How are they going to do this?
Caps has yet to level up a skill, doesn't have the W. Here we go. Wonder stepping straight into Alphari. There's Mickey. Waiting for the knock-up. Alphari doesn't flash away from it. The chase is still on. Alphari ignited the parlay. Wonder with First Blood, and that puts a massive stake through the heart of Origin's plans of playing through top.
It's just disrespect to the amount of damage Gangplank does at level 1 with his passive. The true damage burn is huge, and Alphari was not going to flash the initial CC.
Papa Smithy saying, the more I watch and review Wonder, the more convinced I get that he might be the best Western League of Legends player. Well, give the best Western League of Legends player First Blood, and let's see what he can do.
Yeah, and he's got caps and perks on his team.
I was going to say, I was like, that's quite a statement to
These
make.
LCK analysts.
I mean, it's definitely something to take into consideration. The man is very talented, but he's also
Are you talking about Pop Smithy?
I was focusing on Wonder.
I see.
But the thing about Wonder is he's always been regarded throughout his entire career as being a carry top laner. And one of the big criticisms that he used to have when he played for Splice is that when the meta was very team fight focused, his impact on tanks was nowhere near as relevant as it was on carries. Like, he was the guy that used to play Trinity Force Fizz top, and he used to play these kind of crazy champions that would get leads and he'd be a really big side lane threat, but on tanks he never had that prevalence, and it feels like that ever since he joined G2, he's never really needed to. He's had the creative freedom to play whatever he wants, and while I'm confident he could still play tanks, he's definitely shown a lot of growth over the year that he spent on G2 in 2018.
Yeah, he's also a player that just shows up internationally as well, you know? A lot of the time you see him go onto that stage, and all anyone talks about is the strength of G2 solo laners. We heard it a lot last year. Well, now they've added more strength to the roster, top to bottom. You have a case to be best in your role, or at least top 2, top 3, and this team already looking scary in the series against Origin.
It definitely is. We actually see Origin deciding to go for a couple of minion dematerializers pretty early on here. Well, in their rune choices, you've got one on Nuke Duck in the mid lane and one on Mithy down towards the bottom side. Of course, was changed on 9.6 to only give you 3 stacks instead of the usual 6, but can still help you if you want to push out some of these waves.
Yeah, for sure. And the other interesting thing to note is the electrocute on the Corki. This isn't typically what we're used to seeing, Ender.
It's usually fleet footwork.
Yeah, but it definitely contributes to the burst, and I also think that it kind of just speaks to Caps as a player. If he has the opportunity to kill his opponent, he will go for it. And I think one of the advantages is that against the Corki, it can be harder for Alessandra to actually proc that Aftershock to land that W, because she's never really going to get in range, which means that every time she kind of approaches the wave, it's actually very easy for Caps to kind of land that initial burst combo of the E into auto into Q to then convert that into...
Now look here,
nice
top lane. Jankos is going in, but Cold has the counter gank.
Cold there just in time. Yanko's going to run away. Wonder just chase back towards his tower. Alfari not able to land the never move. Now, meanwhile, in the mid lane, Caps jumped down to about 250 HP. Nukeduck has the advantage here, of course, has already teleported back into that lane.
I feel like we have to talk about the junglers, though, because once again, Cold reads Jankos like a book. He's such a strong pathing jungler that he often shuts down plays the other team is trying to make. Although that's a rough trade for him, I'll say.
That's what Hail of Blades will do to you early on if Jankos can get those auto attacks off. Maybe looking for the knock up here, but Caps is pretty low and just needs to be safe in the lane for the time being.
Other thing to note is that Caps is running the cleanse in the mid lane as well. Typically, Corkis like to run the teleport so they can act as a side lane split pusher, but against Lissandra, it's very dangerous. And we see a lot of trading in the bot lane. And notice how much more confidently Patrick is playing. He's not at a deficit. He didn't have to give up, his support didn't have to give up Flash at level 1. And he is playing this Jinx where he's actually managed to build up a pretty healthy CS lead already in the bottom lane.
Supports have a bit of a summoner mismatch as well. Both AD carries running the teleport, but Mickey has Ignite, whereas Mithy has the heal for this lane.
And it speaks to how these supports and these teams want to play around the bottom side, whereas G2 want the Ignite to have the extra quick kill threat, because I do expect Jankos to be making a visit in the future. Just top side right now, he knows Alfari has no flash, but after this reset, perhaps could look bottom lane, whereas Mithy knows it's not about Patrick until much later in the game, until 3 items for this Jinx. He just needs the heal to keep his carry safe.
Across the board, we see Wonder getting a bit of an advantage up towards the top lane as expected. Now has a Sheen as he gets back into the lane. Is running the Grasp of the Undying Gangplank. Sometimes we see Klepto Gangplank, but usually Grasp when you want to be a bit safer in lane.
Yeah, I think against a lot of tanks, you will see the Klepto because you're never under threat, whereas against the ranged matchup, having the extra sustain from the Grasp of the Undying is going to be very beneficial.
We also just note that Caps still hasn't backed. He has tried to back like 3 or 4 times now, and he's like, yeah, I'll stay for one more wave. Yeah, okay, I'll stay for one more wave.
And see what Cold is doing too. He's protecting Nukeduck on this push. Nukeduck, who TP'd back into lane to get the extra Dark Seal and Fairy Charm, just permanently shoved this wave, is not giving any room for Caps to go back to base. So when Caps does go back, he'll be working very close towards that Trinity Force to be able to pick up a Sheen or a Phage on the way, but won't have the chance for a little while.
He's already sitting at 1,600 gold, which, for the record, you definitely want to try and base on Corki, and as you rightly said, either the Phage or the Sheen is your first back, but the fact that he's being kept in lane for so long makes it difficult because he doesn't really have the mana right now to generate pressure, which means that it's then harder for Jankos to try and set up invades to get some of that vision down, to keep an eye on what Cold is doing, whereas Cold can move into the enemy jungle, just as you were highlighting. While he is helping protect Nukeduck, he's also doing what he can to spot out where Jankos is and what he's up to.
So about a 500 to 600 gold lead coming out here for G2. A lot of that sitting on Wonder in the top lane. We saw that he was a few hundred ahead. And that's just all because of that first blood, right? That's all that's
400 from it.
Yeah,
There's also CS in there as well. You don't expect GP to be 15 CS up over a Swain.
How can Origin rectify this situation, though? We've seen Cold try and sneak up towards that top lane for a gank once or twice. Hasn't always worked out because Jankos has been there. But do they need to rectify it quickly, or can they just keep this as the state of affairs?
Well, I do think that Swain naturally just scales very well into the game. But the easiest way to rectify this is to gank. And I'd love to see Cold try and make a gank happen. I think Jarvan and Lissandra is a great duo. Obviously, against a cleanse, it's very difficult, but he has a lot of options, I feel. He could look for a play up towards the top side of the map. He could look for a play mid, and that's the easiest way to get out of a deficit. Just try and force a play and, find kills.
Yeah, it's hard to work mid with the cleanse on Corki as well as the Valkyrie, but you can see Jankos actually changing up his job a little bit. He was sitting in the pixel brush, tracking Cold, who has now hit level 6 and has a little bit more priority in this matchup. He's going to see Jankos on the Wolves, and he knows Caps is finally getting his reset off, so Cold doesn't have the smite and won't be able to try to steal, and unfortunately, even with that pressure, won't be able to get too much done.
Cold looking for the places where he can gank. Bot is pretty pushed in. Package now picked up by Caps as well, so we'll start to see if we look for those roams down towards the bottom lane. With the Cannon Barrage, with the package, that's what we expected in Pick and Ban, and with Perks being on the Xayah once again after being so effective on it in Game 2, I'm sure G2 will want to set him up for success once again.
Key difference, though, is that Perks does not have kills coming out of this laning phase. He's actually down a little bit in CS as well, because let's face it, Jankos has not made bottom lane a priority. Perks has been able to push in rather consistently down here, but hasn't been able to put too much pressure down. Both AD carries running teleports means that, yes, there is heightened kill threat in the lane, but ultimately, if Patrick just wants to sit under his tower and farm, he's definitely going to be able to do so.
Let's also take note of who has priority right now, because G2 have been able to push in all 3 lanes. The Gangplank actually has constant push over the Swain right now in this early laning phase. The Corki, now that he's been able to go back to base, is also pushing Nukeduck underneath his tower, and the bot lane. The reason why Patrick and Mythic can't play as aggressively as they were is because they actually have no vision in the river. That is triple control wards right now for the bot side of the map in favor of G2. And it means that the risk of a dive is very real.
Quickness used, the Featherstorm comes out with some perks as well. The root's going to land onto Patrick as he flashes away. Mithy underneath the tower still has the thick skin available. The Void Rush coming onto Patrick, and Jankos will secure him. Cold now here, dunks down onto the Rex side, but he isn't close enough to the tower to take the damage. Nukeduck is able to get away with the Blast Cone. Cap's still on the chase though, and Nukeduck won't be there to save his jungler in time. 2-for-1 change so far. Mithy with the Abyssal Voyage gets behind Caps, but all they're going to do is chase him back towards Perks. The Frozen Tomb cleansed away from Nukeduck. Has a lot of damage, but Caps gets the second. Mithy will kill Mickey and won't be able to get away. Perks flashes away from Mithy and gets a kill for himself as well. 3-for-2 in favor of G2.
A bloody engagement around the bottom lane, but G2 show no hesitation. Jankos just landed the Prey Seeker and dove straight underneath the tower to get the first kill on towards Patrick, and it was because of the vision setup you talked about, Vedias, that they were able to walk all the way down and set up for this play.
And so note here how they just hit level 6, immediately go for the engage. Mickey is able to land the double taunt. Jankos then comes over the wall, and notice how Perks is patient before he calls back the feathers, because then he can land the double root. You then have the Jankos ultimate to lock down the AD carry, who is now flashless, and with the arrival of Caps, things are looking pretty good for OG. But then Nukeduck starts to turn things around. Not only does he find a kill onto the jungler, but he's quite confident that he can, hang on, fire.
In the mid lane, Nukeduck caught out, but Flash Devour from Mithy. Cold locks up Mickey, who used the Battle Dance to get away, and Nukeduck can use his Glacial Path to get under the tower.
This is what I want to be seeing from Origin, though, because in the last game, they were too slow with their advantages. They weren't able to convert it into other areas, and while they are behind in the game currently, keeping this fast pace and looking for picks like this is the right mentality.
The main point, or the main takeaway from the play that just happened is that Caps now has an advantage in the mid lane. The bot lane has been put behind from the side of Origin, and now they're kind of forced into wave clear duty, and they have to be very afraid of Perks getting this big lead once again, because let's not forget what he did last game. He was basically the wall that stopped OG from making plays. We heard it from Yamato. We talked about it already in the cast. It was the fact that they couldn't take down that mid-tier 1 that limited Origin from utilizing the Tahm Kench, setting up vision in the enemy jungle, and actually making plays. And if Perks gets to the same situation, G2 will be more than happy to trust him to do the same thing again.
You can see Caps sitting at the top of the gold chart, Nukeduck following him, but then Wonder and Perks, Patrick falling behind, Alfari miles behind as well, about 600 gold in the hole against his opposing laner. And we talk about how we want to see OG play more proactively, we want to see them on the front foot, but if we have a look at the All-Pro team this year, there were 3 members of G2 on that lineup and no members of Origin, and that's because Origin don't have those standout playmakers. They don't have those guys that step up and make the 1v4 play. Nukeduck escaping here in the bottom lane.
It's one of those things where, for me, Origin is a team that's greater than the sum of their parts. What makes Origin so good and what has found them so much success in the second half of the split is their teamwork and the fact that they have so many versatile strategies and the fact that they come across as a very smart team. But pound for pound, you just naturally give the advantage to players like Caps, like Wonder, like Perks, and I feel like in this series is kind of an example of why you often put your vote in that corner.
Exactly, because the question that's asked is, what's better, the team play that wins later in the game or finding the right fights, or the people that'll just win 1 versus 1? And so far this series, a lot of it has been the solo plays from the side of G2.
I mean, we think about the team fights, right? Like, and one of the things that can often get lost is how these individuals make those plays that end up winning you those fights. So
yeah.
Even if the fight is like 80-20 in your favor and everything you've done is correct, sometimes if you just have that unbelievable player that does something
Yeah,
crazy.
sometimes you have Wonder, and he just goes in the backline 1v3 and kills everyone.
So it's one of those things that makes G2 so scary as a team. But Origin, they're not completely out yet. They are at a pretty big deficit. They've actually completely abandoned the bot lane. They've swapped up towards the top side. And right now, this early game is falling out of their control.
Yeah, I mean, they're already 2.5, 3,000 gold behind. You've got Trinity Force finished on Corki. You've got an Essence Reaver already complete onto Perks. And sitting only at, pieces of items on the side of Origin, it feels like G2, with this ability to scale with the double marksman, are in a very strong position.
They are indeed. And now the Rift Herald is a point of contention. Remember that OG do have 4 members here. Caps has the package, so he should be able to get out fairly safely. But look at how low Cold is. The Gangplank ulti is available, and here comes Jankos.
Jankos on his way, knocks up the Scuttle Crab. Rift Herald's going to reset. Wonder chased off towards the top side, has to burn the flash, and Jankos coming in from the side here as Caps chases away Nuke Duck. Rift Herald chased him all the way into the jungle, but is just going to reset in the end.
But now Perks has just taken the bot tower, and he can actually group up with his team. He has the teleport if he needs it, but he's likely just going to walk up towards this Rift Herald as Caps gets priority mid, and G2 should be the ones to secure this objective once again.
Yeah, I believe Alfari actually used his ultimate down in the bottom lane as well. They're going to port in here into the mid lane, just trying to protect this tower, but
Perks
oh my!
gets rooted up straight away on the
He
flame
has no
jump
ult.
as he's chased away. No ultimate on him. Caps there, just tanking up in front of his AD carry. And Patrick will just clear out the way for the moment. Rift Herald has been started up. Alfari down towards the bottom lane. Double the amount of plates for G2 here in the early portion of this game.
Now, both top laners do still have their teleport. Remember, Wonder has the Cannon Barrage as well to influence a fight around this area if it were to break out. But OG are not confident enough to move into the river, and because Perks got blown up in that fight, he had to reset. So it will be parity on the map once again.
The thing is, though, whenever we see someone get blown up on the side of G2, they somehow seem to be able to get out alive. Cap still has the cleanse here, which is why I'm not too worried for him at the moment, but we'll just be chased off towards that mid lane once again. Coming past the 15-minute mark in this game, it's a pretty sizable lead for G2, about 3,500 gold ahead.
So the thing that often surprised me is, in that situation, Nukeduck chose not to ult, when I feel like he could have, right? And the thing you got to remember is, Mickey,
you do have to remember,
I
Mickey.
feel like they're looking for a fight.
They really are.
Yeah.
Wonder coming in as well. Here's Jankos. Powder Keg's going to land, but Cold's just forced away for the time being.
Right. So the thing about Cleanse, right, is it actually has a very long cooldown. It's 210 seconds. If my math is right, that's 3.5 minutes.
It is.
Good
right?
stuff.
Well done.
And I feel like when you have an ultimate like Lissandra's, which is only a 1.5 minute cooldown, you can force it, and then your ultimate will be up again before their cleanse is back. And one of the things that I often wonder is, Origin just feel like they look at these situations like, we can't make the play happen because, well, they have these summoner spells and they get out of this situation, but they don't think, well, we can make this play happen and then we're setting up for the next play. It just feels like that they're playing a little too cautious. They're not willing to take gambles, and I feel like that they kind of need to when they're down 2-0 in a best of 5 for a spot at the finals.
Very much agreed with you there, Vedius. And it's kind of that sum of their parts discussion, isn't it? Origin are greater than the sum of their parts because as a team, as a unit, they work so well together. But
Yes.
you don't see the one person saying, okay, I'll take the 50-50. I believe in myself that little bit more than I believe in Caps, then I believe in Wonder.
And that's not to say that they're bad players, right? Because we look at players like Nukeduck, and even in that 1 versus 3, he had a very impressive Lissandra play, and he actually ended up getting a one kill in that situation. And we've seen Alfari, he popped off last game on that Poppy as well, right? It's just one of those situations where sometimes it feels like they're playing a little too safer than they need to.
But you can't blame them when you're playing against a team like G2. You have Caps, who's won 2 LEC titles. You have Perks, who's won 4. You have this team of veterans who are probably the best players in their roles in a lot of positions across the course of all of the LEC. It's so hard to think, I can take this guy in a 1v1. I can take this guy in a 2v1.
And Origin's response so often is, we'll take them in the 5v5. And if you are them, with the headsets on, behind the PCs in this game, down 4,000 gold, you have to come up on the fly with a strategy to beat them. And I think their best bet is to wait a little bit. Patrick is going to be the damage dealer for this team, and while, yes, you can look to fight with the numbers advantage, ultimately, I think you need to wait before looking for the explosive fights until Jinx is at 3 items. Because OG, while they don't have a true tank frontline, they do have a lot of survivability with a Lissandra, a Swain, the full tank Jarvan, even a Tom Kench to bail someone out that they can go for longer fights and wait for Jinx to get the reset before they can win. The difficulty for them is going to be that even in the late game, that doesn't mean they outscale because G2 have so much power. 3 players that are going to be building full crit.
And so what we just saw there was another Origin Classic where they send multiple members, pretty much the entire team, towards one side of the map in order to gain control. And with Dragon spawning, they actually wanted to secure the bot tower and trade it for the top one and maybe find a pick as G2 try to get some vision around this Dragon. But G2 actually just secure the top tower, they get vision topside, and they use the Gangplank ultimate to clear out bots. So Origin actually get nothing off the back of that. They lose the Rift Herald, and now they could very well lose the mid-tier one as well.
Rift Herald going to be used mid here. This 4.5, almost 5,000 gold lead for G2. Just continues to extend. Caps waiting for the Rift Herald to charge in. The tower goes down. Mithy caught out by Jankos here. Pops the thick skin, but Caps is on the chase. Root up with the Flame Chompers. Not going to have enough damage to take down Mithy, but Patrick's forced back as well.
Going in.
And with the Rift Herald going forward, there's the Void Rush. Jankos gets the kill. He'll get a double. Takes down Mithy. And now Cold is on the chase as Jankos just about gets away for the moment. Eventually will fall to the vision of Bedfire. Doesn't connect. He's used the bow to get away, but there's no flash on Jankos. Cold
is going to get it.
Does have his flash EQ combo. Final auto attacks enough. They shut down Jankos, but they lose so much for it.
I actually think Jankos was out of combat right there, so he got the shutdown gold. Because in combat, the shutdown will not update. If you get a pentakill, you won't get shutdown if you're immediately killed. But he lived for so long that Cold got like 600 gold off of that play.
Oh man, but the fact that Jankos went for that play, showing you the power of Hail of Blades right there in the early game. The fact that you're able to stack up that Fury so quickly means that he used his ultimate to get the initial chunk of damage off, but then that E damage was just so devastating. So that actually bought a lot of time for G2. They pushed in both lanes. Wonder still holds on to this bot tier 1, and it feels like the G2 have just got full control over this game.
And plays like that are so reminiscent of the first half of the split G2. You know, the G2 that went 9-0. Perks gets away, uses the Featherstorm to get to safety, but it's very easy after looking at their last few weeks to forget how strong G2 were in those first 5 weeks, how much they dominated the league. We were talking about them as the most dominant team we'd ever seen in Europe. And this is such a strong performance by them as they get the charm on the backline. Caps rooted up. Nuke Dog uses the Frozen Tomb on himself. Mithy very low, almost goes down to the Cannon Barrage. The Bow was not able to connect, but here's Caps from the side, and now Nuke Dog just trying to dodge around. Perks gets the kill. It's another as Wonder puts the parlay into the back of Mithy. 2 more players from OG fall, and G2 once again come out on top.
Just 20 minutes into the game, G2 are trying their best to roll over Origin. They're up 7,000 gold. The Baron even hasn't been on the map for a minute. They're still going to move over towards it. Cold is in the base. He's trying to run here to make a play happen, but it might be too late.
Alfari here, 5,000 HP left on the Baron. Patrick coming in from the side as well. Doesn't have the Super Mega Death Rocket. 4,000 HP now on that Baron. Alfari's going to pop the Demonic Ascension. Can get in the middle of them all. Caps able to survive as he he just jumps away. They do reset the Baron, but OG don't get too much out of it.
So we can see here that Origin, after what was a pretty devastating fight, end up actually keeping the Baron away from G2's hands. But that fight was not an ideal situation for OG to find themselves in. So as we start this replay off pause, what you'll notice is that a lot of Origin are just grouped up in this kind of choke point here. And they're going to be forced to escape up through this narrow point. And this is going to allow the Mickey on here to come in from the side, land a multi-man taunt, and then the Gangplank ultimate, who's just sitting behind on his way up, as you can see on the minimap. He's going to walk his way up, he's going to throw the ultimate on top of the team, and this is just going to melt through the squad. So as we roll out the replay, you'll see how this whole fight comes together and how it kind of devastates through the lineup of Origin. And the fact that the wombo combo worked in this very tight choke point meant that it was a very easy fight for G2 to get the chase down in.
And it's basically a 2v5 at the start, right? It's a Rakan and a Corki jumping into that corridor, but because they had the threat of the rest of the team coming, the Cannon Barrage as well as the CC from Rakan, just keep Origin in there. Origin were on full retreat the entire time, and G2 were able to get full control over this top side.
They have total vision control over the Baron pit. Teleport coming in here as Mithy is overstepped. Pops the thick skin. The blast code used by Wonder. Mithy will go down. Wonder on a killing spree. 10-3. 7,500 gold lead for G2 now.
But why is Mithy even there? Like, Baron buff is up, you're warding for a Cloud Drake, it just doesn't make sense. Origin are all out of sorts. We were wondering what they were going to do. They're just going to get engaged on.
Charm lands onto Cold, the second charm onto Alfari as well. Nuke Duck splitting down towards the bottom side, but Cold will pop the Cataclysm and he will fall. G2 just cleaning up Origin, the Void Rush comes in, and Jankos sinks the bangs in. Perks gets a double. This could just be the game.
And Origin are falling apart as the 5-man unit of G2 make their way towards the Nexus and will make their way towards the final at Rotterdam.
They didn't win a title in 2018. They dominated the first half of the split, and then people started to doubt. People wondered if G2 could be as strong as they looked early on, where they are showing us here against Origin that they are here to fight.
Origin, they're trying their best. It's the last-ditch effort for this team.
Nexus towers are down. G2 take down Nuke Duck, and the Nexus is in their sights. Cold with a flash in. Alfari here as well. Patrick pops the Superman to death. Rocket gets one. Caps shut down. The Nexus towers have fallen, but G2 have to run. Patrick looking for the resets. The red buff slow. The zap is
Get
enough.
excited,
He gets
people!
excited, but they can't get the chase off any further. Tom Kench comes in behind them, but it's all him on his lonesome. It's Mithy versus his former team as they try and take down Perks. They'll root him up. They'll take him out. It's a shutdown going over to Cold.
Origin are running to Baron. This was their last chance to stay alive in the game. G2 thought they had the time to take down the Nexus. We all thought they had time to knock that one down, but no. Patrick had something to say about it. They stayed alive, and with no towers defending their base, they are starting the Baron. It's only Jankos that can try to steal.
8,000 HP left on the Baron. Jankos has stolen an Elder Dragon already this weekend. Wonder has the teleport up in 7 seconds as well. 4,000 HP on the Baron. Patrick wailing away on it, but Jankos looking for the ability to get in. The Baron down to 2,000. Jankos gets Mithy. The Baron down to 1,000 now, but Mithy eats him up, and Cold will get it. Wonder now teleported into the fight. Is this enough? Can G2 get the chase off? Can Origin get out with their lives? Nuke Duck is down towards the bottom side. Alfari chased out by Wonder. Wonder just needs the trial by fire. Who gets him? That's another kill for Jankos off towards the top side as well as Patrick falls. Cold chased underneath the tower. He will survive.
Nuke Duck was waiting in the base, expecting a backdoor. He had the teleport, but he did not come into the fight. 5 members of G2 are alive, and there's just 2 on the side of OG.
Exactly that. Even though Origin secure the Baron, I don't know if they can hold the line against 5 members of G2. Only 3 in the base right now. Let's see if Origin can do it.
Super minions pushing in. Perks and Caps on their way. Look at the death timers. Mithy up, Patrick in 10, Alfari in 20. Baron minions now respawn for Origin. The engage, the charm. Caps jumps in. Nuke Duck goes golden, pops the stopwatch for the moment, but he's down. And Caps and G2 will silence anyone that doubted them. And they will fight for the title in Rotterdam.
Expectations were not that G2 would 3-0. We expected this to be a 5-game series. We expected the back and forth. But G2, they came in prepared. Every member showed up. And this is G2 at full power.
And every single game from this team just got better and it got cleaner. Game 1 was scary if you're a G2 fan. You thought OG were going to take them down, but Game 2 was dominant and Game 3 was not even close. G2 were the best team on the day, and they're looking like the best team going into Rotterdam.
And this is what the team was built to be. They were meant to dismantle Europe. They picked the best players from every position, and they hoped to build one of the strongest rosters that Europe has ever seen. And while they faltered in the second half of the split, they came into playoffs prepared, and now they look like a terror for whoever goes up against them in the final.
Because for 2018 G2, they made it to semifinals. Everyone remembers that, but it was a failure domestically. They could not continue their streak. They won 4 titles in the 2 years before it. They won 0 in 2018. They completely changed their roster. Perks to AD carry. People thought they were out of their minds, but then they bring in Caps. They bring in Mickey X, and this team just looks almost unstoppable.
This does mean that G2 moves on to the final next Sunday, where Origin will play up against Fnatic the day before on Saturday. Get your tickets for the finals weekend in the Ahoy Arena at eu.lollysports.com/Rotterdam. And you talked about Perks in the lane swap, but he had an exemplary performance in those last 2 games. Game 2, Game 3 on the Xayah, he was popping off.
It was impressive to watch, honestly, from this team. I mean, we've said it so many times, every single role can carry, but it did come to fruition here. It was true for G2. Game 1, Caps. Game 2, It was Wonder, it was Perks. Game 3, I just think the whole team won their lanes. They just walked down, and there was nothing Origin could do to stand in their way.
Who do you think was Kia player of the series? Was it Wonder, Caps, or Perks? Head on over to @Esports on Twitter and vote. I'm a support main, and I think it was Mickey. His return was absolutely impeccable. He made all the plays. If he doesn't engage, no one can follow up.
I mean, I think many players from G2 had very impressive performances. I think Jankos was someone to take into consideration as well. I think game 1, he definitely got out-jungled by Cold in the early game, but as the series went on, he warmed up. The burn from Shock still clearly hurting him in game 1, but progressively got better and better.
And speaking of Jankos, he and Perks will actually join Shox and Yamato Cannon in the post-game lobby in just a few minutes. So
very nice.
We can hear, what Shox's burn actually, how it affected Jankos, how he thought about it.
But for Origin, I think they're obviously going to be very frustrated. They wanted, at the very least, to take a game off of G2. And while game 1 was very close, as Ender said, it just kind of got better and better for G2, but worse and worse for Origin. And they will have another opportunity. They will go up against Fnatic in our semi-final on Saturday, and if they win that, they have the opportunity to rematch G2 in the final. Now, naturally, G2 would look like the favorite in that matchup, just like they would against either of them, but it sets up for a really exciting matchup between Origin and Fnatic, the former final back in 2015, one of the hypest series we've ever had. It's definitely going to be a match that you want to tune into.
It definitely is. Let's see what Caps and Mickey have to say after making it to the final.